Hello friends. Did you know nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy these stories, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It really helps. Thank you for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I've been running freight through Florida for 12 years now. Name's Otis. Started when I was 23, right after I got out of the service. The money was decent, and I liked being alone with my thoughts. Most of my runs took me through the backroads, the ones that cut through the Everglades where cell service dies and the only company you get is the occasional gator crossing. This happened last August during one of those humid nights where the air feels like breathing through a wet towel. I was hauling a load of construction equipment from Miami up to Tallahassee. Nothing special, just another overnight run to beat the morning traffic. The dispatcher had given me a route that took me through some of the older highways, the ones they don't bother maintaining much anymore. Around 2 in the morning, I was on State Road 29, that stretch that runs along the edge of the Big Cypress Preserve. If you've never driven it at night, count yourself lucky. It's just miles of swamp on both sides, no lights except your headlights, and the kind of darkness that seems to eat sound. The only noise was my engine and the occasional splash from something moving in the water. I'd been driving for about 3 hours straight when I saw the first set of taillights ahead, red dots floating in all that black. It was unusual to see anyone else out here this late. Most truckers stick to the interstates and locals know better than to drive these roads after dark. But there they were, maybe a quarter mile ahead, moving slow. As I got closer, I could make out it was a panel van. White, no markings, Florida plates. Nothing strange about that on its own. What was strange was how slow they were going. Maybe 25 in a 55 zone. I eased off the gas, not wanting to ride their bumper. The road was too narrow here for passing, just one lane each direction with soft shoulders that dropped straight into swamp. The van's brake lights flickered, then it pulled off onto a dirt access road, one of those maintenance paths the Park Service uses. I watched it disappear into the trees as I passed. Figured maybe they were lost or needed to check their GPS. Didn't think much of it until I saw the second vehicle about a mile later. Another van, same make and model, parked on the shoulder with its hazards on. The back doors were open. Interior light spilling out onto the road. I slowed down as I approached, trucker instinct kicking in. You see someone broken down out here, you at least check if they need help. That's the code. But as my headlights swept across the scene, I saw something that made me keep driving. There were people in the back of that van, not sitting on seats, sitting on the floor, packed in tight. I counted at least 8 heads in that brief moment my lights hit them. None of them looked up. None of them moved. They just sat there, hunched over, like they were trying to make themselves small. My stomach dropped. I knew what I was looking at. You hear about it happening, especially down here near the border states, but seeing it yourself is different. I grabbed my CB, tried to raise someone, anyone. Nothing but static. Cell phone showed no bars. I was in a dead zone, literally and figuratively. I kept driving, hands tight on the wheel, checking my mirrors every few seconds. About 2 miles down, I saw more lights. This time, it was 3 vehicles pulled off on a wider section of shoulder. 2 more white vans and a black SUV with tinted windows. People were moving between the vehicles. Quick, efficient movements. Nobody running, nobody shouting, just transferring human cargo like they were loading boxes. I slowed down again, not stopping but getting a better look. That's when I saw him. A man standing by the SUV, watching the road. Tall, thin, wearing a light-colored shirt and jeans. Even from a distance I could tell he was alert, scanning for trouble. Our eyes met for just a second as I passed. He didn't wave, didn't smile. Just watched me go by with the kind of look that said he was memorizing my truck, my plates, everything about me. I pushed the accelerator harder than I should have on that narrow road. My trailer swayed a bit, but I didn't care. I needed distance between me and whatever operation I'd just witnessed. 5 miles, 10 miles, 15. Finally, I saw the lights of a gas station ahead. One of those 24-hour places that cater to truckers. I pulled in fast, probably too fast, and parked under the brightest light I could find. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone. 2 bars of signal. I called 911. The dispatcher who answered sounded bored at first. Another trucker calling in about something they saw on the road. But when I described the vans, the people, the location, her tone changed. She started asking specific questions. How many vehicles? What direction were they headed? Did I see any weapons? Could I describe any of the people? I answered everything I could remember. She told me to stay where I was, that someone would come take a statement. 20 minutes later, a Collier County Sheriff's cruiser pulled in. The deputy was young, maybe mid-20s, but he knew his job. He took notes, had me point out the exact location on his map, even called it in while I was sitting there. But then he said something that chilled me more than what I'd seen on the road. "You're lucky you didn't stop," he said. "We've had 3 truckers go missing on this stretch in the last 6 months. Found one of their rigs abandoned about 10 miles from where you saw those vans. No sign of the driver." He took my information, said a detective would probably call me for follow-up. Then he gave me some advice I'll never forget. "Next time you're running this route at night, don't stop for anything. Not for accidents, not for breakdowns, nothing. And maybe consider taking I-75 instead, even if it adds an hour to your run." I sat in that gas station parking lot for another hour after he left, drinking coffee and trying to stop my hands from shaking. Every time a white van pulled in, my heart rate spiked. Finally, around 5 in the morning, when the sky was starting to lighten, I got back on the road. The rest of the run to Tallahassee was uneventful. Delivered my load, got my paperwork signed, acted like everything was normal. But it wasn't. I kept thinking about those people in the van, how they didn't look up when my lights hit them, how they just sat there, resigned to whatever was happening to them. A detective did call me 2 days later, asked more questions, had me look at some photos of vehicles and people. I couldn't identify anyone specific, but I gave him everything I remembered. He thanked me for calling it in, said I'd done the right thing, but he also said something that stuck with me. "We've been tracking this operation for months," he said. "They move people through the swamps because they know we can't patrol every back road. They use truckers' routes because they blend in with legitimate traffic, and they don't usually leave witnesses." That last part hung in the air between us. I knew what he meant. I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to see, and somehow I'd driven away from it. But the way he said it made me realize it wasn't over. These people knew their routes had been compromised. They knew someone had seen them, and they probably knew it was a trucker who'd called it in. For the next few weeks, I was paranoid. Every time I saw a white van in my mirrors, I tensed up. Every time someone followed me for more than a few miles, I started planning escape routes. I changed my routine, took different roads, even stayed in different truck stops. But nothing happened. No one approached me. No one threatened me. It was almost worse than if they had, the waiting, the wondering. Then, about a month later, I was back on State Road 29. Different load, same general route. I'd thought about taking the interstate like the deputy suggested, but it would have added 2 hours to my run, and time is money in this business. Besides, lightning doesn't strike twice, right? It was another late night, maybe 1 in the morning. The road was empty except for me and the bugs hitting my windshield. I was just passing the spot where I'd seen those vans when my engine started sputtering. The temperature gauge was climbing. Steam started seeping from under the hood. I cursed, knowing I had to pull over. The engine was overheating, and if I didn't stop, I'd blow it completely. I found a slightly wider spot on the shoulder and eased to a stop, grabbed my flashlight and popped the hood. Coolant was leaking from a hose that looked like it had been sliced. Not worn through. Sliced, clean cut, like someone had taken a knife to it. That's when I heard the vehicle approaching, slow, deliberate, no hurry. I looked up to see headlights coming from the direction I'd just come. As it got closer, I could see it was a van, white, no markings. It pulled up behind my truck and stopped. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. Not the tall, thin one I'd seen before. This one was shorter, stockier, wearing coveralls like a mechanic. He walked toward me with his hands visible, empty, but something about his movement was wrong. Too casual, too confident for someone approaching a stranger on a dark road. "Having trouble?" he asked when he was about 10 feet away. His accent was local. Florida panhandle, maybe. Friendly enough on the surface. "I'm good," I said, keeping the truck between us. "Already called for help." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "No cell service out here. I know. I work these roads." We stood there for a moment, sizing each other up. I had my hand on the tire iron I kept behind the seat. He had his hands in his pockets now, despite the heat. "You look familiar," he said finally. "Drive this route often?" "Sometimes," I said, non-committal. "Yeah, me too. Small world." He took a step closer. "Sure I can't help? I got tools in the van. Could probably patch that hose, get you running again." Every instinct I had was screaming danger. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. They'd been watching, waiting for me to come back through. And now here I was, broken down in the exact spot where I'd seen their operation. "I'm good," I said again, firmer this time. "My company's sending someone." He nodded slowly, like he was thinking something over. Then he said something that confirmed everything I feared. "You know, Otis," he said, using my name even though I hadn't given it, "sometimes people see things they shouldn't. Smart people forget what they saw. They move on, they take different routes, they don't cause problems." My blood went cold. They knew who I was. They'd done their homework. "And sometimes," he continued, "people don't get the message. They keep driving the same roads, keep their eyes open when they should keep them shut. Those people, well, they tend to have more mechanical problems, worse problems." The threat was clear. This was my warning, my only warning. "I understand," I said quietly. He smiled again, that same cold smile. "Good. Good to understand things. Makes life easier for everyone." He started walking back to his van, then stopped and turned. "You know, there's a nice truck stop about 30 miles north on 75. Good coffee, safe parking. The kind of place a smart driver might start using instead of these back roads." He got in his van and drove away, leaving me there with my sliced coolant hose and my racing heart. I waited until his taillights disappeared, then used my emergency water supply to fill the radiator enough to limp to the next town. Found an all-night repair shop, got the hose replaced, and never drove State Road 29 again. But the story doesn't end there. Because a week later, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, it was a woman's voice. She spoke quickly, quietly, like she was afraid of being overheard. "You're the trucker who saw the vans," she said. It wasn't a question. "Who is this?" My sister was in one of those vans. She's 17. They took her from our farm in Immokalee. "Please, you have to help. You're the only one who saw them, who can identify them." My heart sank. I wanted to help, I really did. But I also wanted to keep breathing. I already told the police everything I saw, I said. The police aren't doing anything, she said, desperation creeping into her voice. They say they're investigating, but nothing's happening. My sister's out there somewhere, and you saw where they take them. I don't know where they take them, I just saw vans on the road. But you saw more than that. You saw the man by the SUV. You could identify him. She was right, I could. I'd gotten a good look at him, that tall, thin man with the calculating eyes. But identifying him would mean testifying. It would mean putting a target on my back that was even bigger than the one already there. I'm sorry, I said. I wish I could help. She started crying then, quiet sobs that hit me harder than any threat could have. She's 17, she repeated. She wanted to go to college. She wanted to be a teacher. I ended the call. I'm not proud of it, but I ended it. Because what could I do? Risk my life for someone I'd never met? Go up against an organization that had already shown they could find me, disable my truck, threaten me on a dark road? But her voice stayed with me. Every night when I'm trying to sleep, I hear her crying for her sister. Every time I pass a white van on the highway, I wonder if that 17-year-old girl is in the back, hunched over, trying to make herself small. I changed my routes after that, stuck to the main highways, the well-lit roads with plenty of traffic, never drove at night through the swamps again. But it didn't matter, because 2 months later I saw him again. I was at a truck stop near Ocala, broad daylight, plenty of people around. I was walking back from the restroom when I saw him standing by my truck. The same tall, thin man from that night on State Road 29. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there looking at my rig like he was considering buying it. When he saw me approaching, he smiled. Not threateningly, just a recognition, like we were old acquaintances. "Otis?" he said, nodding. I stopped about 10 feet away, very aware that we were in public, that there were cameras, witnesses. "Virgil," he said, introducing himself like we were at a business meeting. "I heard you've been keeping to the highways lately. Smart choice." "Just doing my job," I said. "We all are," he replied. "Just trying to make a living in difficult times." The casualness of it, the way he talked about human trafficking like it was just another business, made my skin crawl. "Those people," I started, but he held up a hand. "Are not your concern," he said firmly. "You drive trucks. I handle logistics, different industries. No overlap necessary." "Logistics," I repeated, the word tasting bitter. He shrugged. "Everyone needs transportation. Some cargo is more complicated than others, but it all needs to move from point A to point B. That's where professionals come in. People who understand discretion, who know when to see and when to be blind." A family walked past us, kids laughing, parents obviously road-weary. Virgil watched them with the same calculating look he'd had that night on the road. "You have a nice life, Otis," he said when they'd passed. "Steady work, no complications. It would be a shame if that changed." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm observing," he said. "Threats are for amateurs. Professionals just share information, like the fact that your ex-wife lives in Gainesville. Your daughter goes to FSU. You visit them sometimes, take Route 441 usually." My hands clenched into fists, but he kept that same calm smile. "Just observations," he repeated. "The world is full of random accidents, unexpected tragedies. But they're less random when people mind their own business, when they stick to their own roads." He started to walk away, then turned back. "Oh, and Otis, that woman who called you. About her sister, she won't be calling again. That problem resolved itself." The implication hit me like a punch. I wanted to grab him, demand answers, but he was already walking away, disappearing into the maze of trucks and cars. When I looked for him again, he was gone. No vehicle, no trace, like he'd never been there at all. I found out later what happened to the woman who'd called me. Single car accident on a rural road. Drove into a canal, they said. No skid marks, no sign she tried to brake. Just drove straight into the water. They ruled it accidental drowning. But I knew better. She'd pushed too hard, asked too many questions, and they'd resolved the problem. Her sister was never found. None of the people from those vans were, as far as I know. The investigation the detective mentioned went nowhere. No arrests, no raids, nothing. It was like everyone just decided to forget it happened. But I couldn't forget, can't forget. The months after that encounter at the truck stop changed everything about how I did my job. I started carrying a gun, legally, of course. Got my concealed carry permit and kept a Glock 19 in the compartment beside my seat. I installed dash cams, front and rear, with cloud storage so footage would be saved even if something happened to the truck. I varied my routes constantly, never taking the same roads on consecutive runs. But you can't run forever from people who move in shadows. And in Florida, especially down near the Everglades, the shadows are everywhere. It was December when things escalated. I just picked up a load of produce from a farm near Homestead, heading up to Orlando. It was early evening, sun setting behind me as I drove north on US 27. This was a route I hadn't taken in months, but the dispatcher insisted. Said the client specifically requested the fastest possible delivery, and this was the most direct path. About an hour into the drive, I noticed I was being followed. Not obviously, but deliberately. A sedan, dark blue or black. Hard to tell in the dimming light. They kept perfect pace with me, staying about a quarter-mile back. When I slowed, they slowed. When I sped up, they matched it. I tried the old trick of taking an exit, circling back to the highway. They didn't follow me off, but when I merged back on, there they were again. Same distance, same steady pace, like they'd never left. My phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Otis, it was Virgil's voice, calm as ever. You're carrying produce, yes? How did you? We know all the routes, all the shipments. It's our business to know, but that's not why I'm calling. I kept driving, eyes flicking between the road and my mirrors where that sedan maintained its distance. There's going to be a checkpoint ahead, he continued. State police, random inspection, they'll say. But it's not random, and they're not just checking for weight violations. What are you talking about? Someone talked, not you, we know that, but someone in our organization got careless. Now the state boys are sniffing around, setting up operations. They're going to tear your truck apart looking for hidden compartments, anything suspicious. I don't have anything illegal in my truck. I know that, but they don't. And when they don't find anything in your truck, they'll move to the next one, and the next one. Meanwhile, our actual shipment will be stuck 3 trucks behind you, unable to move, unable to turn around. I understood then. They needed a distraction. They needed the cops focused on legitimate trucks while their cargo found another route. I'm not helping you, I said. You don't have to help. You just have to do what you always do. Drive your truck, comply with the inspection. But Otis, when they ask if you've seen anything suspicious, if you've noticed any unusual vehicles or activity, you want me to lie to the police. I want you to have a poor memory. Truckers see so much road, it all blurs together, doesn't it? The sedan was still behind me, steady as a heartbeat. And if I don't, then that sedan behind you will have to make other arrangements. And those arrangements will be messy, public, the kind of thing that makes the news. Trucker shot in road rage incident. You know how it goes. I could see lights ahead, multiple vehicles, the checkpoint he'd warned about. There was nowhere to turn off, no way to avoid it without making things worse. I understand, I said through gritted teeth. Good man. Oh, and Otis? After this, we're even. You keep your mouth shut, we forget you exist. Fair trade? He hung up before I could answer. The sedan behind me suddenly accelerated, past me doing at least 90, and disappeared into the distance before the checkpoint. They'd made their point. They could reach me anywhere, anytime. The inspection was thorough, just like Virgil had said. They had dogs, mirrors on poles to check under the truck, officers who opened every compartment. They asked questions about my route, where I'd been, what I'd seen. I answered truthfully about everything except the sedan. When they asked if I'd noticed any vehicles following me or acting suspiciously, I shook my head. Just normal traffic, I said. Nothing out of the ordinary. It took 45 minutes before they cleared me to go. As I pulled away, I saw them flagging down the next truck and the next. Further back in the line, barely visible in the growing darkness, were 3 white vans. They'd been caught in the checkpoint trap, just like Virgil had predicted. But as I drove away, I saw something else. Those vans were turning around, using the median crossover marked for emergency vehicles only. No one stopped them. No one pursued them. They just melted back into the southbound traffic and disappeared. The checkpoint had been real, but it had also been orchestrated. Someone had tipped off the cops about suspicious activity on this route, forcing them to set up the inspection. But someone had also made sure the real targets knew exactly when and where to avoid it. It was a chess game, and truckers like me were just pawns. I made my delivery in Orlando and decided to stay overnight instead of heading back. Found a motel near the warehouse district, paid cash, parked my truck where I could see it from my room window. I needed time to think, to figure out my next move. Around midnight, someone knocked on my door. 3 soft raps, like they didn't want to wake the neighbors. I grabbed my gun, checked the peephole. It was a woman, middle-aged, Hispanic, wearing a hotel cleaning uniform even though this place didn't have room service. "Mr. Otis?" she said through the door. "Please, I need to talk to you." "We're closed," I said, which made no sense, but I was tired and on edge. "Please. It's about my daughter. She was in one of the vans." My hand froze on the door handle. This could be a trap. Someone Virgil sent to test me. Or it could be real, another desperate parent looking for answers. "I can't help you," I said through the door. "I'm not asking for help, I'm warning you." That got my attention. I kept the chain on but cracked the door open. She looked exhausted, scared, but determined. "My name is Eula," she said quickly. "I work at the truck stop on State Road 60. I see you there sometimes. Coffee, black, no sugar." She was right. I did stop there, or used to. "What warning?" I asked. "They're planning something, the men who took my daughter. I hear them talking when they come through. They think I don't understand English well, but I do. They mentioned your name." "When?" "2 days ago. They said the trucker Otis was becoming a problem, that he needed a permanent solution." My blood chilled, so much for being even. "Why warn me?" "Because you saw them. You reported them. You're the only one who tried to do something." Tears started forming in her eyes. "My daughter, Rosa, she's 15. They took her from our apartment complex. Said they were immigration, that there was a problem with our papers. But we're citizens, born here. Did you go to the police?" She laughed bitterly. "The police?" "Some of them are involved. Not all, but enough. Money flows through this state like water, and everyone gets wet." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is a license plate number. The SUV, the black one. I saw it again yesterday, memorized the plate. Maybe it helps, maybe not. I took the paper. Florida plates, commercial registration. You should leave, I told her. Get out of Florida. Start over somewhere else. I can't leave. Not without knowing what happened to Rosa. Even if she couldn't finish the sentence. These people are dangerous. I know. They killed a woman last month. The one whose sister disappeared. Made it look like an accident. You know about that? Everyone knows. But knowing and proving are different things, and speaking up is dangerous. She looked me directly in the eyes. They're moving the operation. After the checkpoint, after the attention, they're changing routes. North, through the peninsula. More trucks, more drivers who don't ask questions. How do you know all this? I serve coffee to monsters every day. They talk like I'm furniture. Invisible. She stepped back from the door. Be careful, Mr. Otis. They don't forgive, and they don't forget. She walked away quickly, disappearing around the corner of the motel. I watched from my window as she got into an old Toyota and drove away. I never saw her again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Eula had said, about Rosa, about all the people in those vans. I'd been trying to protect myself, to stay out of it, but I was already in it. Had been, since that night I saw them on State Road 29. The next morning, I made a decision. I called the detective who'd interviewed me months ago. His name was Morrison, and he'd given me his direct number in case I remembered anything else. I need to talk to you, I said when he answered, in person, somewhere public. We met at a diner off I-4, one of those 24-hour places full of tourists and families. Safe, busy, normal. Morrison looked tired, like he'd been working this case non-stop with nothing to show for it. I have a plate number, I said, sliding Eula's paper across the table. Black SUV, connected to the trafficking ring. His eyes sharpened. Where did you get this? Does it matter? He studied me for a moment, then pocketed the paper. What else? I told him about Virgil, about the threats, about the checkpoint. I didn't mention Eula by name, just said I'd been given information. He listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes in a small notebook. You're taking a big risk talking to me, he said when I finished. I'm already at risk. They know who I am, where I work, who my family is. We can protect you, I laughed. Like you protected the woman who called me about her sister? His face darkened. We didn't know about her until after. If she'd come to us instead of trying to investigate on her own, she didn't trust you, said some cops were involved. Morrison didn't deny it. There's rot in every system. We're trying to cut it out, but it takes time. Meanwhile, people disappear. Yes, he said simply. They do. We sat in silence for a moment, the cheerful noise of the diner a strange contrast to our conversation. What do you want from me? I asked finally. Testify, official statement. Help us build a case. That's a death sentence, not if we get them first. You've been trying to get them for how long? And they're still operating. Morrison leaned forward. We're close. This plate number might be the break we need. If we can track the SUV, find where they're keeping people. And if you can't, then we keep trying. But with your testimony, we'd have more. I thought about Rosa, 15 years old, taken from her home. About her sister in that van, 17, wanting to be a teacher. About all the others whose names I'd never know. I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long. These operations, they can pack up and move overnight. Hurricane season, they say, or construction project finished, but really they just disappear, set up somewhere else. I left the diner first, Morrison staying behind to finish his coffee and make some calls. As I walked to my truck, I noticed a familiar figure standing by a nearby car. Not Virgil, but the stocky man in coveralls who'd threatened me on the road. He wasn't trying to hide, just standing there watching me. I kept walking, got in my truck, started the engine. He didn't move, didn't follow, just watched. The message was clear. They knew I'd talked to Morrison. They knew everything. I drove out of the parking lot expecting to be followed, expecting something to happen. But nothing did. Just normal traffic, normal day. Delivered my load, picked up another, kept moving. But I knew the clock was ticking. Either Morrison would move on that plate number and make arrests, or Virgil's people would decide I was too much of a liability. 3 days passed, then 4, then a week. I started to think maybe it would all blow over, that everyone would just move on. But then I got another call from Morrison. "We found the SUV," he said, excitement in his voice. "Registered to a shell company, but we tracked it to a warehouse near Immokalee. We're moving on it tonight." "Good," I said, relief washing over me. "I need you to stay somewhere safe for the next 48 hours, until we have them in custody. I'm on a run to Jacksonville. Won't be back until tomorrow night." "Perfect. Stay out of the area. I'll call you when it's clear." But he never called. Because that night, while I was 300 miles away in Jacksonville, the warehouse in Immokalee burned to the ground. The news called it an electrical fire, probably caused by old wiring. No casualties, the building had been empty. Whatever evidence Morrison had hoped to find was ash. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 2 words. "Still even?" I knew what it meant. They'd destroyed the evidence, covered their tracks, but they hadn't come after me. It was another warning, another chance to walk away. But I couldn't walk away, not anymore. Because that same day, I got another visitor. This time, it was at a truck stop near Gainesville. Broad daylight, plenty of witnesses. A young woman, maybe 20, approached my truck as I was checking my tires. "You're Otis," she said. Not a question. I tensed, ready for another threat, but then she said something that changed everything. "My name is Rosa, Eula's daughter." I stared at her, not believing it. "Rosa's 15. That was 3 years ago. I've been away. 3 years. Eula had said Rosa was taken recently, but she'd been missing for 3 years, which meant, your mother, she thinks you were just taken." Rosa's face crumbled. "I know. I escaped 2 weeks ago. Been trying to find her, but I can't go home. They're watching. They'd take me again. Or worse. Where have you been?" "Different places. Houses, warehouses, trucks. Moved around a lot. There were others, dozens of us. Some got sold, some got moved to other states, some..." She didn't finish. "We need to go to the police." "No." The fear in her voice was real. "Some of them are involved. I've seen cops at the houses taking money, sometimes taking girls. Detective Morrison is probably dead or will be soon. That warehouse fire wasn't an accident. They knew he was coming." My blood went cold. I tried calling Morrison's number. It went straight to voicemail. "What do you want from me?" I asked Rosa. "Help me get to my mother. Get us both out of Florida. We have family in Texas. We can disappear there." It was insane. I was a truck driver, not a smuggler. But looking at this young woman who'd survived 3 years of hell, who just wanted to find her mother and escape, I couldn't say no. "Where is she?" "Still working at the truck stop on 60. Still serving coffee to the men who sold me." The irony was bitter. Eula searching for her daughter, serving the very people who'd taken her, and Rosa free but unable to go home. They'll be watching her, I said. I know. That's why I need your help. You have a truck, you know the roads, you can get us out. I thought about all the reasons to say no. The danger, the likelihood of getting caught, the certainty that Virgil would see this as breaking our even status. But then I thought about those people in the vans, the ones who didn't get away, who didn't have anyone to help them. Okay, I said, but we do it my way. The plan was simple in theory, dangerous in execution. I had a legitimate run scheduled for the following Tuesday, hauling automotive parts from Tampa to Houston. The route would take me right past the truck stop where Eula worked. If I could get both her and Rosa into my truck without being noticed, we could be in Texas before anyone realized they were gone. Rosa stayed hidden at a motel I paid for, about 30 miles from her mother's workplace. I gave her a burner phone, told her to keep the curtains drawn and door locked. She looked so young, despite everything she'd been through. The kind of young that comes from seeing too much too soon. "What did they do to you?" I asked before leaving her there. "Everything," she said simply. "But I survived, others didn't." I wanted to know more, needed to understand what we were really up against, but she shut down after that. Some stories are too painful to tell, even when they're your own. The days leading up to Tuesday were tense. I kept expecting Virgil to show up, or his men, or even the police, but everything stayed quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like the world is holding its breath. I did my regular runs, acted normal, but I was preparing. I bought supplies, water, food that wouldn't spoil, blankets. The sleeper cab of my truck could hide 2 people if they stayed low, but it would be cramped and uncomfortable. I also mapped out alternative routes to Houston, places we could stop if we needed to, truck stops where I knew the security was lax. Monday night, I called Eula. I'd gotten her number from the truck stop, pretending I'd left something behind and needed to check if anyone had found it. When she answered, I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. "It's Otis," I said. "The trucker. Don't say anything, just listen." There was a pause, then a quiet. "Okay. Your daughter is alive. She's safe. I'm going to bring her to you." I heard her sharp intake of breath, then what sounded like crying. "Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock. Be ready to leave. Everything behind, no goodbyes, no notes. Can you do that?" "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, anything. They might be watching you. Act normal until the moment you see my truck." Is she okay?" "She's survived," I said, which was the most honest answer I could give. Tuesday came dark and cloudy, the kind of weather that threatens rain but never delivers. I picked up Rosa at dawn, had her hide in the sleeper cab before we got on the road. She was quiet, curled up small behind the seats with a blanket over her. "Whatever happens," I told her, "you stay hidden until I say it's safe." The drive to the truck stop took 3 hours. 3 hours of checking mirrors, watching for tails, expecting disaster at every mile marker. But the road stayed normal. Just truckers and commuters and the occasional tourist lost on their way to the beaches. I pulled into the truck stop at 10:45, earlier than I'd told Eula, but I wanted to scout the situation. The place was moderately busy. 4 other big rigs, maybe a dozen cars. I parked at the far end of the lot, nose out for a quick exit, and went inside. Eula was behind the counter, serving coffee to a pair of construction workers. She saw me but didn't react, just continued her routine, professional. I ordered my usual black coffee and sat where I could see both the entrance and the parking lot. That's when I spotted them. 2 men in a sedan parked where they could watch the front door. They weren't trying to be subtle about it. They wanted people to know they were there. One was on his phone, the other just staring at the building. I caught Eula's eye, shook my head slightly. Not yet. The message seemed to get through because she continued working, refilling coffee, wiping down tables. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands trembled slightly. 30 minutes passed. The men in the sedan didn't move. Then, at 11:15, they got a call that seemed to agitate them. Both got out of the car and walked quickly toward the road, looking at something I couldn't see from my position. This was our chance. I stood, walked to the counter. "Now," I said quietly to Eula. "Back door, my truck's the white Peterbilt at the end." She didn't hesitate. Dropped her towel, grabbed a small purse from under the counter and walked toward the back. I followed, trying to look casual. The other employee, a young guy playing on his phone, didn't even look up. We made it to the truck without incident. I opened the passenger door, helped Eula up, then quickly climbed into the driver's seat. "Rosa," Eula called out, already crying. "Mama," a voice from behind the seats, then Rosa emerged, and the two collapsed into each other. 3 years of separation, of not knowing, ended in that moment. But we didn't have time for reunions. I started the engine, put it in gear, and began pulling out. That's when I saw what had distracted the men in the sedan. 2 police cars had pulled in from the other direction, officers walking toward the sedan with purpose. Someone had called them. Maybe Morrison's people, finally moving on the surveillance. Maybe someone else. I didn't care. It was the distraction we needed. We pulled onto the highway without anyone following. For the first few miles, I kept expecting sirens, roadblocks, something. But there was nothing. Just road and rain that finally started to fall. Eula and Rosa held each other in the passenger seat, speaking rapid Spanish, crying, laughing, crying again. I focused on driving, on putting distance between us and Florida. We crossed into Georgia without incident, then into Alabama. Each state line felt like a small victory. We stopped once for gas in Mobile, a quick fill-up where the women stayed hidden. I was pumping diesel when my phone rang. Unknown number. "You broke our agreement." Virgil's voice, calm, but with an edge I hadn't heard before. "We were never even," I said. "You were always going to come for me eventually." "Perhaps, but taking the women, that's different. That's theft. People aren't property. Everything's property to someone, Otis. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price for what you've taken. Send me a bill." He actually laughed at that. "Oh, I will, but not in money. You see, Rosa knows things, names, faces, locations, things that could damage our entire operation. Good. Not good for you, because now you're not just a witness. You're a threat, and we handle threats differently than witnesses. I'm driving to Texas. You'll never see me again. Texas isn't far enough. Nowhere is, but I'll give you credit. Using the police distraction was clever. Morrison's people, even in death, causing me problems." My blood chilled. "Morrison's dead?" "Car accident, tragic. Brake failure on a curve. These things happen." Another murder made to look accidental. Another person who'd tried to stop them, erased. "You're monsters," I said. "We're businessmen, and you've interfered with business. That has consequences." He hung up. I stood there in the mobile gas station, rain starting to fall harder, knowing we weren't safe. Wouldn't be safe. Not until these people were stopped, or we disappeared completely. I got back in the truck, found Eula and Rosa looking at me with concern. "What's wrong?" Eula asked. "Nothing we can fix right now. We keep moving." We drove through the night, taking turns sleeping. I taught Eula the basics of watching for tails, how to spot a vehicle that's following versus one that's just happening to go the same direction. Rosa mostly slept. exhausted from 3 years of captivity and the emotional toll of reunion. Around 3 a.m., somewhere in Louisiana, Rosa started talking. Not to anyone in particular, just talking. About the houses where they kept girls. About the men who came to buy them, some for labor, some for worse. About the ones who tried to escape, and what happened to them. There was a girl named Ashley, she said. 14. From somewhere in the Panhandle. She tried to run one night. They brought her back broken, not just physically. Something in her eyes was gone after that. She never spoke again. You don't have to tell us, Eula said, holding her daughter tighter. I do, though. Someone needs to know, in case something happens to me. Nothing's going to happen, I said. But even I didn't believe it. They have cops, judges, politicians, Rosa continued. I've seen them at the houses. Recognized some from TV. They think we don't understand, that we're too scared or drugged to remember. But I remembered everything. Names? I asked. She nodded. Names, faces, license plates. I memorized them like prayers, thinking someday they'd matter. This was why Virgil was really after us. Not just because Rosa escaped, but because of what she knew. She was evidence of the whole network, the entire corrupt system. We need to get you to the FBI, I said. Federal level, outside Florida's influence. No, Rosa said firmly. No more police. No more authorities. I just want to disappear. I understood her fear, but I also knew Virgil wouldn't stop. They'd hunt us down eventually, unless the network was exposed and destroyed. We reached Houston by noon, exhausted and paranoid. I'd arranged for a motel on the outskirts, paid for a week in advance under a fake name. It wasn't much, but it was shelter while we figured out next steps. Eula had family in El Paso, cousins who'd help them start over. But that meant crossing more of Texas, more exposure, more chances for Virgil's people to find us. I'll drive you, I said. Complete the delivery. You've done enough, Eula protested. We can take a bus. They'll be watching public transportation. My truck is safer. It wasn't really, but I couldn't abandon them now. I'd crossed a line, made myself an enemy of dangerous people. The only way out was through. That night in Houston, while Eula and Rosa slept, I made a decision. I called a journalist I'd heard about, someone who specialized in human trafficking stories. Her name was Sarah Chen, and she'd won awards for exposing similar networks in other states. I have a witness, I told her. Someone who can name names, provide details about a trafficking ring operating out of Florida. She was interested, but cautious. We arranged to meet at a public location, a busy restaurant near the airport. I didn't tell Rosa or Eula. Not yet. They'd been through enough without adding more pressure. The next morning, I left them at the motel and drove to the meeting. Sarah was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with intelligent eyes and a recorder she placed openly on the table. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. From that first night on State Road 29 to where we were now. She took notes, asked clarifying questions, never once suggesting I was exaggerating or paranoid. This is big, she said when I finished. Bigger than just Florida. These networks connect across state lines, international borders. Can you help? I can write the story, but I need Rosa's testimony. Her details could break this open. She's scared, traumatized. I understand, but silence is what lets them continue. Every day, Rosa doesn't speak. More girls disappear. She was right, but it wasn't my choice to make. I gave her my burner phone number, said I'd talk to Rosa. When I got back to the motel, there was a white van parked across the street. My heart stopped. But then a family got out, kids and beach toys. Just tourists passing through. The paranoia was getting to me. That evening, I told Rosa and Eula about the journalist. Rosa's reaction was immediate and negative. "No, they'll kill us all." "They're going to try anyway," I said. "At least this way your story gets out. Even if something happens to us, people will know." "I don't care about people knowing. I just want to forget." Eula spoke up then, surprising me. "Mija, you can't forget. I know you want to, but it's in you now. The only way forward is through." It took hours of discussion, tears, and promises, but finally Rosa agreed to meet Sarah. Just meet, no commitments. The meeting was the next day, same restaurant. I watched Rosa transform as she told her story to Sarah. From scared victim to survivor to witness, she named names, provided dates, described locations. Sarah recorded it all, her expression growing more grave with each revelation. "This is enough to start a federal investigation," Sarah said. "But they'll want you to testify officially." "No," Rosa said. "The story is all you get. We're disappearing after this." Sarah nodded, understanding. "I'll need a few days to verify some of these details. Then the story goes live. After that, you should be far away." We agreed. 3 days. Then the story would break. We'd use that time to get to El Paso, get Rosa and Eula settled with their family. Then I'd disappear too. Canada maybe, or Alaska. Somewhere Virgil's reach couldn't extend. That night, back at the motel, I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. The air was too still, the parking lot too quiet. I peeked through the curtains every hour, checking for surveillance, for white vans, for danger. At 4 a.m., my phone rang. Sarah Chen. "They know," she said, panicked. "Someone leaked. My editor just killed the story, said it was unverifiable. I'm getting threats. You need to run, now." I woke Rosa and Eula, threw our few belongings into bags. We were in the truck and moving within 10 minutes. As we pulled out of the motel parking lot, I saw headlights turn on in 3 different vehicles. They'd been there all night, waiting. The chase started slow, almost casual. They stayed back, following but not pursuing. They wanted us to know they were there, to panic, to make a mistake. But I'd been driving long enough to know panic gets you killed. I took us through downtown Houston, using the early morning delivery traffic as cover. Lost one tail at a construction zone, another at a confusing interchange. But the third stayed with us, patient and persistent. "Where are we going?" Eula asked, holding Rosa's hand. "Airport," I said. "You're flying to El Paso, right now. What about you? I'm the one they want. You're just witnesses. Without me, you might have a chance." It was partially true. I was the one who'd interfered, who'd cost them money and resources. Rosa and Eula were valuable only for what they knew, and without Sarah's story, that knowledge was contained. I pulled into the departure zone at Houston International, ignoring the honking and security guards waving at me to move. Shoved cash into Eula's hands, enough for tickets and then some. "Go, now. Don't look back." Rosa grabbed my hand before getting out. "Thank you. For everything." "Survive," I told her. "That's thanks enough." They disappeared into the terminal, and I pulled away before security could get my plates. The tail was still there, had picked me up again, but now it was just me and them. I drove north out of Houston with that sedan still behind me, maintaining the same careful distance. No aggressive moves, no attempts to run me off the road. Just following, waiting for something. I didn't know what until my phone rang. Virgil. "That was noble, letting them go," he said. "Pointless, but noble." They don't know anything, I lied. We both know that's not true, but it doesn't matter now. Rosa and Eula made their choice. They'll live with the consequences. You, however, have a different choice to make. I'm listening. There's a rest stop about 20 miles ahead. Pull over. We'll have a conversation. So, you can kill me? If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. Your truck's been in our sights for the last hour. One phone call and that sedan behind you rams you off the road. Tragic accident. Trucker fell asleep at the wheel. He was right. They could have taken me out any time. The fact that they hadn't meant they wanted something else. What kind of conversation? I asked. The kind that determines whether you drive away from that rest stop or become another missing trucker statistic. I didn't have much choice. Running would only delay the inevitable. At least at a rest stop, there might be witnesses, cameras, some small protection. 20 miles, I agreed. The rest stop was one of those big ones with multiple buildings, vending machines, and picnic areas. Even at 7 in the morning, there were a handful of cars and 2 other trucks. I parked in the most visible spot I could find, right under a light pole with a security camera. The sedan pulled in behind me. Just one man got out. Not Virgil, but the stocky one in coveralls I'd encountered before. He walked to my passenger side, made a gesture for me to unlock the door. I did, and he climbed up. "Drive," he said. "Virgil said we'd talk here. Change of plans. Too public. There's a service road 2 miles ahead. Take it." This was bad. Service roads meant isolation, no witnesses. But the man had his hand in his pocket, and I could see the outline of a gun. I drove. The service road was barely more than packed dirt, leading back into scrubland. We went about a mile before he told me to stop. There was another vehicle waiting, the black SUV I'd seen that night on State Road 29. Virgil stood beside it, looking exactly the same as the last time I'd seen him. Calm, composed, dangerous. I turned off the engine and climbed down. The man in coveralls stayed by my truck while I walked over to Virgil. "Otis," he greeted me like an old friend. "You've caused me considerable trouble." "Likewise." He smiled at that. "Fair enough. But trouble can be resolved. That's why we're here. What do you want?" "First, understand your position. The journalist you met with has been persuaded to forget your story. Her editor was very reasonable once we explained the situation. Rosa and Eula are on a plane, yes, but planes land, and we know where they're going. El Paso isn't that far." My heart sank. They knew everything. "However," Virgil continued, "I'm a businessman, not a monster, despite what you think. Violence is expensive, messy, and draws attention. I prefer solutions that benefit everyone. There's no solution that benefits those girls you traffic." His expression hardened slightly. "Those girls, as you call them, would be moved by someone regardless. If not me, then someone worse. At least my organization has rules, standards. We don't deal in children under 13. We don't sell to the truly sadistic. It's business, controlled and regulated." "You're trying to justify slavery. I'm explaining reality. This trade has existed for thousands of years. It will exist for thousands more. The only question is whether it's run by professionals or savages." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was the savage, but I knew it wouldn't matter. Men like Virgil had long ago made peace with their choices. "What's your solution?" I asked instead. "You work for me." I actually laughed. "Never." "Not in the trade itself," he clarified. "Transportation only. Legitimate cargo, legitimate routes, but on my schedule. You'd be a clean asset, above suspicion. In exchange, Rosa and Eula live their lives in peace. You live yours. Everyone moves forward. And if I refuse? Then we're back to messy solutions. Rosa has an accident. Eula disappears. You're found in your truck, apparent suicide. Tragic how the stress of the job gets to some drivers. I looked around the empty scrubland. No witnesses, no help coming. Just me and two men who killed as easily as they breathed. I need guarantees, I said. Proof that Rosa and Eula will be safe. Virgil pulled out his phone, showed me a live video feed. It was Rosa and Eula at the El Paso airport getting into a taxi. Another angle showed the taxi driving away, no one following. They're free, he said. They stay free as long as you cooperate. How long would I have to work for you? 5 years. Standard contract. After that, we part ways. You never speak of this, we never contact you again. 5 years of being owned by monsters. But 5 years of Rosa and Eula being safe. It wasn't a choice, really. What would I be hauling? Electronics, furniture, legitimate cargo. The paperwork will always be clean. DOT won't find anything irregular. You'll just happen to drive routes that benefit our other operations. Create traffic patterns that help us move undetected. I'd be helping you traffic people. Indirectly, but yes. I thought about Morrison, dead for trying to stop them. The journalist, silenced before she could expose them. Rosa and Eula, free but only as long as I played along. The system was rigged, had always been rigged. I need time to think. You have 5 minutes, Virgil said, checking his watch. Then I need an answer. I walked away from them, back toward my truck. The morning sun was getting higher. Heat already starting to build. Somewhere out there, Rosa and Eula were starting their new lives. Other girls were trapped in vans and warehouses. The world kept spinning, indifferent to all of it. I thought about my options. Run, and they'd catch me. Fight, and they'd kill me. Cooperate, and I'd become part of the evil I'd tried to stop. There was no good choice. Only degrees of bad. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it and found a picture of Rosa and Eula at what looked like a small house, smiling, safe. The message below read, "They made it, thank you, E." That decided it. Their safety was worth more than my conscience. I walked back to Virgil. 5 years, nothing involving kids, and I want monthly proof that Rosa and Eula are safe. Agreed, Virgil said immediately, like he'd known what I'd choose all along. He pulled out a paper, a simple contract for transportation services. The language was vague enough to be legal, binding enough to be enforceable. I signed it, sold my soul for 2 lives. Maybe that was a fair trade. Maybe it was the only trade. Your first run is next week, Virgil said, pocketing the contract. Miami to Atlanta. Furniture shipment. The paperwork will be waiting at your usual dispatcher. Everything will seem normal because it is normal. You're just driving a truck. While you move people in my shadow. Everyone moves in someone's shadow, Otis. At least now you know whose. He walked back to his SUV, then turned one last time. Oh, and Otis, that gun you've been carrying? Get rid of it. My drivers don't need weapons. They have something better, protection. They drove away, leaving me standing in the morning heat beside my truck. I sat in the cab for an hour, trying to process what I'd just agreed to. 5 years of knowing I was enabling horror. 5 years of being complicit in the very thing I'd tried to stop. But Rosa and Eula were safe. That had to count for something. I drove back to Houston, delivered my legitimate cargo, acted like nothing had changed. But everything had. Every truck I saw on the road, I wondered if the driver was like me, compromised, trapped. Every white van made my stomach turn. The first run for Virgil came as promised. Miami to Atlanta, furniture for a hotel chain. Completely legitimate. I checked every piece of paperwork, every seal on the cargo. Nothing illegal. But I noticed things. How certain cars appeared at specific mile markers, how my route had been carefully planned to pass through areas at exact times. I was a pace car, a marker for other vehicles to follow or avoid. After that run, an envelope appeared in my truck. Cash, more than the legitimate job paid, and a photo. Rosa and Eula at what looked like a family barbecue. Smiling, alive. This became my routine. Regular runs that weren't regular. Clean cargo that provided cover for dirty business. Monthly envelopes with payments and proof of life. I never saw Virgil again, only received instructions through untraceable messages and modified dispatch orders. 6 months into my contract, I heard about a major trafficking bust in Jacksonville. Dozens arrested, hundreds of victims rescued. The news called it the largest operation in Florida history, but I knew better. It was a sacrifice, Virgil throwing competition to the authorities to keep them satisfied. The real network continued, adapted, survived. A year in, I tried to find Morrison's family, thinking maybe I could tell them something, provide closure. But there was no family. Morrison had been alone, dedicated to the job that killed him. Another ghost in the system. 2 years in, I got a message that made my blood freeze. A photo of my daughter at FSU, walking to class, unaware she was being photographed. The message was clear. They knew where everyone was. Cooperation wasn't just about Rosa and Eula anymore. 3 years in, I'd become numb to it. Drove my routes, collected my envelopes, didn't think about what moved in my wake. The human mind can adapt to anything, even being a cog in an evil machine. 4 years in, Rosa contacted me. She shouldn't have been able to find me, but she did. A single email to an old account I rarely checked. I know what you did for us. What you're still doing. It's not your fault. We're alive because of you. That matters. I deleted the email immediately, but her words stayed with me. We're alive because of you. Was that enough? Could saving 2 lives justify enabling the suffering of hundreds? Now I'm in my 5th year. The final year. Virgil's organization has kept their word. Rosa became a teacher, like her sister wanted to be. Eula remarried, found some peace. They never talk about those 3 years Rosa was gone, at least not publicly. But I know the truth. The network is bigger than ever, more sophisticated. They use cryptocurrency now, encrypted communications, routes that change daily. The white vans have been replaced by RVs, moving homes that attract less attention. The girls are still there, still trapped, still disappeared. I'll be free in 3 months, free to drive away and never look back. Virgil promised no contact after the contract ends, and I believe him. Men like him honor their business agreements. It's the only honor they have left. But I won't be free, not really. Every time I see a young girl walking alone, I'll wonder if she's safe. Every Amber alert will make me think of the vans. Every missing person poster will remind me that I knew where some of them went and did nothing. Last week, I was at a truck stop near Valdosta when a woman approached my truck. Young, scared, clearly running from something. "Please," she said, "I need a ride, just to the next town. They're coming for me." I knew who they were, knew what would happen if I helped her. My contract was almost over, my freedom so close. But looking at her, I saw Rosa, saw all the girls in those vans. "Get in," I said. She climbed into the passenger seat, shaking. I drove her 200 miles to Savannah, found her a women's shelter, gave her all the cash I had. As she got out, she hugged me. "You saved my life," she said. Maybe. Or maybe I just delayed the inevitable. Virgil's people would find her eventually. They always did. But at least she had a chance, a head start. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. "That was unwise, Otis." Virgil's voice calm as ever. "My contract says I drive trucks, not that I can't help people. Technicalities. I thought we understood each other better than that. 3 more months, then we're done." "Yes, 3 more months. But actions have consequences. The girl you helped, she was property, valuable property. That value has to be recouped. From me? From somewhere. Perhaps an extension of your contract. Another year should cover it." No. 5 years was the deal. Deals change when partners act in bad faith. The line went dead. I sat in my truck knowing I'd crossed a line, knowing they'd make me pay for it. But for the first time in 5 years, I didn't care. That girl was free, even if temporarily. That mattered. 2 days later, I found a GPS tracker on my truck. Removed it. Found another the next day. Stopped looking after that. Let them track me. Let them watch. 3 more months and I'd disappear so completely even they wouldn't find me. But they had other plans. This morning, I woke up to find an envelope in my cab. Not cash this time. Photos. My daughter at FSU, but recent ones. Very recent. Like yesterday recent. And a note. 6 more years. Or she takes Rosa's place. Your choice. V. I sat there for an hour, holding those photos, knowing I was trapped. Knowing I'd always been trapped from that first night on State Road 29. You can't witness evil and walk away clean. It follows you, owns you, makes you complicit. I called my daughter, told her I loved her, made sure she was safe. She was laughing about some party, some boy, some normal college life thing. She had no idea how close she was to disappearing into the shadow world that exists alongside our normal one. Tonight, I'll sign the new contract, 6 more years, and probably 6 more after that. Because men like Virgil don't let assets go. They use them until they're used up, then they disappear them. But I've started writing everything down. Every route, every pattern I've noticed, every detail about the organization. I'm mailing copies to journalists, FBI offices, anyone who might listen. Maybe nothing will come of it. Maybe Virgil will find out and I'll become another tragic accident. Or maybe someday someone will connect the dots, follow the patterns, save some girls, stop some vans. That's all I have left. The hope that my confession becomes evidence, that my complicity becomes testimony, that somewhere Rosa is teaching children and staying quiet, staying safe, staying alive. Because in the end, that's what this is about. Staying alive in a world where people vanish, where evil operates in broad daylight, where truck drivers become accomplices because the alternative is worse. I have to go now, have to drive, have to maintain the patterns that keep the shadows dark and the monsters fed. But know this, they're out there. On every highway, in every state, moving people like cargo, operating in the spaces between what we see and what we ignore. And some of us are helping them, not by choice, but by circumstance, by the terrible mathematics of saving who we can while enabling the suffering of who we can't. May God forgive me. May Rosa and Eula stay free. May my daughter never know how close she came. And may someone, someday, burn it all down. But I don't think they will, because the truth is, the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed, and we're all part of it, whether we know it or not. My name's Clyde, and I've been hauling freight across the Southeast for 18 years. Started when I was 25, right after my first marriage fell apart. The road was therapy back then. Now it's just routine. Miles of asphalt, endless white lines, and the occasional story you wish you could forget. This happened last September, during that stretch when hurricane season overlaps with the tail end of summer heat. I was running a load of medical supplies from Jacksonville down to Naples. Time-sensitive stuff, dialysis equipment that some clinic needed yesterday. The dispatcher had promised bonus pay if I could shave a few hours off the delivery time. That's why I took State Road 29 through the Big Cypress Preserve instead of staying on I-75. It would cut 40 minutes off my time, and 40 minutes meant an extra $300 in my pocket. Seemed like easy money at the time. It was around 11 at night when everything went wrong. The road was slick from an earlier rain, that kind of Florida downpour that comes out of nowhere and leaves everything steaming. I was making good time, probably pushing a little harder than I should have been, when I hit a patch of standing water. The trailer started to fishtail immediately. 18 wheels suddenly had different ideas about which direction to go. I tried to correct, pumping the brakes, steering into the skid like they teach you, but the load shifted. All that medical equipment, improperly secured by whoever loaded it, slammed to one side. The truck jackknifed. I remember the world spinning, the headlights cutting crazy arcs through the darkness, illuminating cypress trees, and saw grass in flashing snapshots. Then came the impact. The cab hit something solid and stopped, but the trailer kept going, folding around like a broken arm. When everything finally stopped moving, I was hanging sideways in my seatbelt. The passenger side of the cab pressed into soft mud. The engine was still running, sputtering and coughing. I could smell diesel, hot metal, and that distinctive swamp smell, rot and growth mixed together. I killed the engine and took inventory. Nothing broken, at least nothing I could feel through the adrenaline. Some cuts from broken glass, bruises that would hurt like hell tomorrow, but I was alive. The cab was tilted at about a 45-degree angle. The driver's side door above me like a hatch. I managed to push it open and climb out, dropping down onto what used to be the passenger door. The truck was a mess. The trailer had folded in half, its back end submerged in swamp water. The cab was buried nose first in the muddy shoulder. There was no way this rig was moving without heavy equipment. My cell phone showed no signal, of course. This stretch of 29 was a dead zone on a good day. The radio was crackling with static, probably damaged in the crash. I was alone, injured, and stuck in the middle of nowhere with a destroyed truck full of medical supplies that people needed. I grabbed my flashlight and emergency kit, then climbed up the embankment to the road. Maybe someone would come by, though traffic was rare this late at night. I'd been standing there for maybe 10 minutes, watching my own blood drip onto the asphalt, when I saw headlights approaching from the north. The vehicle slowed as it got closer, finally stopping about 20 feet away. It was an old Ford pickup, the kind they stopped making in the 90s. Rusty, held together with primer and prayers, but running. The driver's door opened, and a woman got out. She was maybe 60, short and sturdy, wearing a floral house dress that seemed out of place on this empty road. Her gray hair was pulled back in a bun, and she moved with the careful steps of someone who knew the dangers of the swamp at night. "Lord have mercy," she said, looking at the wreck. "Are you hurt, son?" "I'm okay," I said, though the blood running down my face probably said otherwise. "Just need to call for help." "No phones out here," she said, approaching slowly. "Tower's been down for months. County says they'll fix it, but you know how that goes." She looked me over with what seemed like genuine concern. "I'm Opal. Live about 3 miles up the road. You need medical attention and a phone that works. I can wait here. Someone else will come by." She shook her head. "Honey, I've lived here 40 years. This time of night, you might see another car by sunrise. Maybe. And you're bleeding pretty bad. That cut on your head needs stitches." She was right. I could feel the blood soaking my collar, and the adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by pain and dizziness. "My son's good with medical stuff," she continued. "Was in the army, trained as a medic. We can at least clean you up, let you use our landline to call for a tow." I looked at my destroyed truck, then at this woman who seemed like she'd stepped out of a Norman Rockwell painting. Every trucker knows you don't go with strangers, especially in isolated areas. But I was hurt, stranded, and running out of options. "Okay," I said, "thank you. Come on then, truck's right here." I followed her to the Ford, noticing how she kept glancing at my wrecked rig. "Shame about your cargo," she said. "What were you hauling?" "Medical supplies. Dialysis equipment." Something flickered across her face, there and gone so fast I might have imagined it. "Important stuff? People depending on it?" "Yeah. Clinic in Naples." She nodded thoughtfully as I climbed into the passenger seat. The inside of the truck smelled like cigarettes and something medicinal, like a hospital smell but older, staler. There were dark stains on the bench seat that could have been anything. We drove in silence for a few minutes. The road was completely dark except for the truck's one working headlight. No streetlights, no houses, just swamp on both sides. Finally, she turned onto a dirt road I hadn't even seen until we were on it. Trees formed a tunnel overhead, Spanish moss hanging down like curtains. "Been living out here long?" I asked, trying to make conversation and calm my nerves. "All my life," she said. "My daddy built our house back in the 50s, back when this was really nowhere. Now, it's just mostly nowhere." The road wound through the trees for what felt like forever, but was probably only a mile. Finally, lights appeared ahead. A house materialized out of the darkness. 2 stories of weathered wood with a wraparound porch. It looked like it had been nice once, maybe 40 years ago. Now, it just looked tired. But there were lights on inside, warm and welcoming. A generator hummed somewhere behind the house. Several outbuildings dotted the property, a barn, what looked like a large shed, and something that might have been a guest house. "Merle," Opal called out as we parked. "We got company. Bring the medical kit." The front door opened and a man emerged. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35, built solid like someone who did physical work. He wore jeans and a tank top that showed arms covered in military tattoos. His hair was cut short, almost military regulation, and he moved with that particular kind of awareness that veterans have. "What happened?" he asked, already assessing my injuries with practiced eyes. "Truck accident down on 29, Opal said. "This is—" She looked at me questioningly. "Clyde," I said. "Clyde needs some patching up and a phone." Merle nodded. "Let's get you inside. Get a better look at that head wound." They led me into the house, which was cleaner than I expected from the outside. The living room was dated but tidy, with old furniture covered in handmade doilies. Family photos covered one wall, generations of people I didn't recognize. The medicinal smell was stronger inside, mixed with something else. Cleaning products maybe, but harsh ones. Merle had me sit at the kitchen table while he examined my head. His hands were steady, professional. He cleaned the wound with something that stung like hell, then started stitching it up without any local anesthetic. "Sorry," he said when I winced. "Fresh out of lidocaine." "It's fine," I managed through gritted teeth. Opal busied herself making coffee, moving around the kitchen with practiced efficiency. "You said medical supplies," she said casually. "What kind exactly?" "Dialysis machines, mainly. Some other equipment." "Expensive stuff?" "Very." She exchanged a look with Merle that I couldn't read. He finished with my head and moved on to the cuts on my arms, cleaning and bandaging with military precision. "Phone's in the hallway," Opal said. "You can call your company, get them to send someone." I stood up, still a bit shaky, and went to the hallway she indicated. It was narrow, lined with more family photos. The phone was an old rotary model, probably installed when the house was built. I dialed my dispatcher's emergency number. The call was frustrating. The dispatcher said it would be at least 6 hours before they could get a heavy wrecker out here, maybe longer. The cargo was insured, he said. Like that made everything better. I gave him the approximate location, though I wasn't entirely sure where I was. When I hung up and turned around, Merle was standing right behind me. I hadn't heard him approach. 6 hours, I said, trying not to show how much he'd startled me. "Plenty of time for you to rest," he said. "Head injuries are nothing to mess with. You should lie down. I should get back to my truck. Wait there." "In the dark? With that head wound?" Opal appeared from the kitchen. "Absolutely not. We've got a guest room. You can rest until the tow truck arrives." Something about the way they were both looking at me, concerned but insistent, made me uncomfortable. But they were right. I was dizzy, exhausted, and in no shape to sit on a dark road for 6 hours. "Okay," I said. "Thank you. I really appreciate this." They showed me upstairs to a small room with a single bed and not much else. The window looked out onto the backyard, where I could see the outbuildings in the moonlight. One of them had lights on inside. "Bathroom's down the hall," Opal said. "You need anything, just holler." They left me alone, closing the door behind them. I could hear them talking quietly as they went downstairs, but couldn't make out the words. I sat on the bed, which creaked under my weight, and tried to shake the feeling that something was off. It was too convenient, maybe. The helpful locals, the medical training, the isolated house. But then again, rural Florida was full of people like this. Folks who minded their own business but helped neighbors when needed. I was probably just paranoid from the crash. I lay down, not intending to sleep, just to rest my eyes. But exhaustion won. I dozed off to the sound of that generator humming and something else. Voices from somewhere outside. Maybe from one of the outbuildings. Multiple voices, though I'd only seen Opal and Merle. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window and the sound of engines outside. Multiple engines. I looked at my watch. I'd been asleep for 4 hours. The tow truck shouldn't be here for another 2. I went to the window and looked out. There were 3 vehicles in the backyard that hadn't been there before. 2 vans and another pickup truck. People were moving between them and the large shed, carrying boxes. Medical-looking boxes. My blood went cold. I recognized those boxes. They were from my truck. I backed away from the window, mind racing. They were stealing my cargo. That's why Opal had been so interested in what I was hauling. That's why they'd brought me here instead of leaving me at the truck. They needed time to unload it without me interfering. I tried the bedroom door. It was locked from the outside. Panic set in. These people weren't good Samaritans. They were thieves at best, and potentially much worse. I was trapped in their house, injured, with no phone and no way to call for help. I went back to the window, looking for a way out. It was a straight drop, maybe 15 feet to the ground. Doable if I had to, but not ideal with a head injury. The roof slanted away from the window, too steep to climb. The voices outside got louder. I could see Merle directing the operation, pointing and giving orders. Opal was there too, checking items off on a clipboard. They were organized, efficient. This wasn't their first time. Then I saw something that made my situation even worse. One of the men helping them was wearing a sheriff's department uniform. Local law enforcement was in on it, whatever it was. I sat back on the bed, trying to think. The tow truck would arrive eventually. When it did, would they let me go? Or was I now a liability, someone who'd seen too much? The door opened. Merle stood there, no longer looking friendly. "You're awake," he said. "Good. We need to talk." "About what?" I tried to keep my voice steady. "About how this is going to go. You seem like a decent guy, Clyde. Wrong place, wrong time. We don't want to hurt you, but we will if necessary. I don't understand." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Sure you do. You saw us moving your cargo. Here's the thing, that medical equipment is going to places that need it. Rural clinics that can't afford it otherwise. We're not stealing, we're redistributing. That's still stealing. Maybe, but those dialysis machines, they'll save lives. Poor people's lives. People insurance companies won't cover. Your company will get an insurance payout. They'll buy new equipment. Everyone wins. Except me. You win too, if you're smart. We patch you up, give you a place to rest, and when the tow truck comes, you tell them the cargo was already gone when you woke up. Must have been stolen while you were unconscious at the crash site. You never saw anything. Never saw us. And if I don't?" His expression darkened. "Then you become a problem. And we're very good at solving problems out here. Swamps full of gators, Clyde. Trucks go missing. Drivers, too." The threat was clear. Play along or disappear. "I need some guarantees," I said, stalling for time. "Only guarantee is this. You keep quiet, you leave alive. You talk, you don't. Simple as that." He left, locking the door again. I could hear him walking downstairs, heard more voices, more activity outside. I sat in that locked room for another hour, listening to the sounds of my cargo being systematically stolen. Every few minutes I'd hear a vehicle start up and drive away, presumably taking medical equipment to wherever these people distributed it. The window gave me a clear view of the operation, and I counted at least 8 people involved, not including Opal and Merle. The deputy I'd spotted earlier seemed to be providing security, walking the perimeter of the property with his hand resting on his service weapon. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with the kind of nervous energy that suggested he wasn't entirely comfortable with this arrangement. Around what should have been noon, Opal came up with a tray of food. Sandwich, apple, bottle of water. She set it on the nightstand like this was a bed and breakfast, not a kidnapping. "You should eat," she said. "Keep your strength up. Hard to have an appetite when you're being held prisoner." She sighed, sitting down on the edge of the bed. Up close, I could see the weariness in her eyes, the deep lines that came from years of hard living. "You think we're monsters," she said. "But you don't understand what it's like out here. Nearest hospital is 2 hours away. Clinics shut down because they can't afford equipment. People die from treatable conditions because they're poor and rural. So you steal. We survive, and we help others survive." She looked out the window at the activity below. "That dialysis machine your company was shipping? It was going to a private clinic in Naples, rich folks' backup facility. Meanwhile, there's a community center in Immokalee where migrants' kids are dying from kidney failure because they can't afford treatment. That's not my fault. No, but it's not theirs either." She stood up. "Eat or don't. Tow truck will be here in a few hours. Then this will all be over." She left, locking the door again. I ate the sandwich, not because I was hungry, but because I needed energy if an opportunity to escape presented itself. The apple was mealy, the water lukewarm, but it was better than nothing. As I ate, I watched them work. They were incredibly organized. Each piece of equipment was cataloged, photographed, and assigned a destination. Nothing was wasted, nothing damaged. It was like watching a military operation, which made sense given Merle's background. Then I noticed something else. One of the outbuildings, the one that might have been a guest house, had people going in but not coming out. different people than the ones handling cargo. They looked sick, weak, some using makeshift crutches or being helped by others. It hit me then. This wasn't just a theft ring. They were running some kind of underground clinic. The medical equipment wasn't being sold, it was being used, right here on this property. The door opened again. This time it was Merle, and he wasn't alone. A Hispanic woman, probably in her 40s, wearing scrubs, was with him. She had a medical bag and the tired look of someone who'd been working too long without rest. "This is Maria," Merle said. "She needs to check your head wound." Maria approached cautiously, like she was approaching a wild animal. She examined my stitches, checked my pupils, asked me about dizziness and nausea. Her English was accented but clear, her hands gentle and professional. "You did good work," she told Merle. "No signs of concussion." "I need to ask you something," I said to her. "Are you a real doctor?" She hesitated, then nodded. "In Mexico, yes. Here, I'm nothing. No license they'll recognize, no way to practice legally. But you practice anyway. People need help. I took an oath." She rebandaged my head, then left without another word. Merle stayed, leaning against the doorframe. "Now you know," he said. "We're not just thieves, we're trying to save lives. By stealing from legitimate medical facilities. By taking from those who have too much and giving to those who have nothing." He came into the room, closing the door behind him. "You know what I saw in Afghanistan? Kids dying from infections that a simple antibiotic could cure. But the medicine was sitting in warehouses, controlled by people who cared more about profit than lives. This isn't Afghanistan. No, it's worse. Because here, we pretend everyone has access to health care. We pretend the system works, but drive 20 miles into the swamp, visit the migrant camps, the reservation lands, the forgotten communities, and you'll see the truth." "So you became Robin Hood?" He laughed bitterly. "Robin Hood was a fairy tale. This is reality. Messy, illegal, necessary reality. How long have you been doing this?" 3 years. Started small, just helping a few families Mama knew. But word spreads. Now we've got a network. Doctors like Maria who can't practice legally. Nurses who got blacklisted for speaking up. Pharmacists who lose inventory. And cops who look the other way. His expression hardened. "Deputy Cole down there? His daughter has cystic fibrosis. You know what those medications cost? More than he makes in a year. So, yeah, he helps us, and we help his daughter breathe." It was getting harder to see these people as simple criminals. They were criminals, no doubt. But they were also something else. Desperate people trying to help other desperate people in a system that had abandoned them all. "What happens to me?" I asked. "Depends on you. Tow truck arrives in about 2 hours. You go with them, report your cargo stolen at the scene, collect your insurance, move on with your life. Or you make trouble, and things get complicated." "Complicated how?" He pulled out his phone, showed me a video. It was me, clearly unconscious, being carried into the house by Merle and another man. But the angle and editing made it look like I was drunk, not injured. "Amazing what security cameras catch," he said. "Driver drinks too much, crashes his truck, staggers to a nearby house for help. Good Samaritans take him in, but while he's sleeping it off, thieves steal his cargo from the unguarded truck. That's not what happened. Prove it. Your blood alcohol was never tested. You have a head injury consistent with being drunk and falling. Our deputy friend writes the report. Who do you think they'll believe?" They had thought of everything. I was trapped not just physically, but legally. Even if I told the truth, they'd twisted enough evidence to make me look like the guilty party. "Fine," I said. I'll play along." Smart man. He headed for the door, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry about this. You seem like a good guy, but good guys don't always get to stay clean in a dirty world." He left me alone again. This time, he didn't lock the door. It was a test, obviously. See if I'd try to run, make trouble. But where would I go? We were miles from the main road, surrounded by swamp. Even if I made it out, they had the deputy, the doctored video, all the leverage. I stayed put, watching from the window as they finished loading the last of my cargo. The clinic in the guest house was busy now, people coming and going. I saw Maria moving between patients, saw Opal distributing medications, saw Merle organizing everything with military efficiency. These people were criminals, but they were also running a functioning medical facility for people who had no other options. It was illegal, dangerous, and probably saved lives every day. A horn honked from the front of the house. The tow truck had arrived. Merle came to get me. "Showtime," he said. "Remember your lines." We walked downstairs together. Opal was in the kitchen, cleaning like nothing unusual had happened. She gave me a small, sad smile as we passed. The tow truck driver was a heavy-set man named Earl, wearing coveralls that had seen better days. He looked at my bandaged head with concern. "Damn, son, you look rough. That must have been some crash." "Yeah," I said. "Hit standing water, jackknifed." "Where's the rig?" "About 3 miles south on 29, right side of the road." "Cargo intact?" This was the moment. I could tell the truth, blow their whole operation. But I thought about Maria treating patients who had nowhere else to go. Deputy Cole's daughter needing medicine. All those people in the guest house clinic. "Gone," I said. When I came to, the trailer was empty. Must have been cleaned out while I was unconscious. Earl whistled low. "Damn thieves. This area's getting worse. Good thing these folks found you." "Yeah," I agreed, glancing at Opal. "Good thing." We drove to the crash site in Earl's truck. My rig was exactly as I'd left it, except the trailer doors were hanging open and the cargo area was empty. They'd done a thorough job, even taking the straps and load bars. Earl hooked up the wrecker equipment, muttering about insurance companies and crime rates the whole time. It took 2 hours to get the truck pulled out and loaded. By the time we were ready to leave, the sun was setting again, painting the swamp in shades of orange and red. "You need a ride somewhere?" Earl asked. "Jacksonville," I said. "Company yard." "That's a long haul. Cost you extra." "Company's paying." As we drove away, I looked back once at the dirt road that led to Opal and Merle's house. It was already disappearing into shadow, like it had never existed at all. Earl talked the whole way to Jacksonville, mostly complaining about his ex-wife and the price of diesel. I barely heard him. I was thinking about what I'd seen, what I'd been part of. By staying quiet, I'd become complicit in their operation. But speaking up would shut down a clinic that served people with nowhere else to go. We reached the company yard around midnight. I filled out the incident reports, claiming I'd been unconscious for hours after the crash, and woke up to find the cargo gone. The dispatcher was more concerned about the truck than the cargo. Insurance would cover the equipment, but the rig was a total loss. They put me up in a motel and said someone from corporate would interview me in the morning. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything that had happened. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Clyde?" It was Opal's voice. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "Not sending you to prison." "For understanding. Most people wouldn't." "I don't understand. I just didn't have a choice." "You had a choice. You made the right one." There was a pause. "That equipment you were hauling, 3 of those dialysis machines are already running. There's a 7-year-old girl who'll get her first treatment tomorrow. She would have died waiting for a spot at a regular clinic. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it necessary. There's a difference between legal and moral, Clyde. Sometimes they line up, sometimes they don't. Why are you calling me? To make you an offer. We could use drivers, people who know the roads, know how to move cargo without attracting attention. You want me to work for you? After kidnapping me? We want you to help us help people. And we pay well, very well. With stolen money? With donated money. We have supporters, people who believe in what we're doing but can't be directly involved. Doctors who remember their oaths, wealthy folks with guilty consciences. It was insane. They were asking me to join their medical theft ring, to become a criminal for a cause. Everything about it was wrong, illegal, dangerous. I need time to think, I said. Take all the time you need. But Clyde, whether you join us or not, you've already helped save lives today. Remember that. She hung up, leaving me with more questions than answers. The corporate interview the next morning was perfunctory. They'd already written it off as a simple theft, common in that area. The insurance adjuster was more thorough, but I stuck to my story. Unconscious, woke up to empty trailer, no idea who took it. They seemed to buy it. I was given 2 weeks off with pay, told to rest and recover. But I couldn't rest. I kept thinking about that makeshift clinic, about Maria treating patients by generator light, about the 7-year-old girl getting dialysis. A week later, I drove back to that stretch of Road 29. Not sure why. Maybe just to confirm it had all been real. The skid marks from my crash were still visible, but fading. The dirt road to Opal's house was harder to find in daylight, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. I turned down it anyway. The house looked different in daylight. Shabbier, but also more alive. There were more cars parked outside, people sitting on the porch, kids playing in the yard. It looked like what it was, a community center hiding in plain sight. Merle met me at my truck before I could get out. "Didn't expect to see you again," he said. "Didn't expect to come back. But here you are. Here I am." He studied me for a long moment. "You wanting to help or wanting to cause trouble?" "I don't know yet." "Fair enough. Come on, I'll show you something." He led me to the guest house clinic. Inside, it was cleaner than some legitimate medical facilities I'd seen. Organized, efficient, sterile where it needed to be. Maria was there, checking on an elderly man hooked up to one of my stolen dialysis machines. "This is Roberto," she said. 73, diabetic kidney failure. No insurance, no family with money. He'd be dead without this machine. Roberto looked up at me with eyes that had seen too much life and were grateful for whatever was left. He said something in Spanish I didn't understand, but Maria translated. He says, "Thank you." He knows where the machine came from. I didn't know what to say. "You're welcome. I'm sorry." Nothing seemed right. We walked through the clinic. Every bed was full. People with cancer getting chemo from stolen medications. Kids with asthma using stolen nebulizers. A pregnant woman getting prenatal care on a stolen ultrasound machine. "All of this is illegal," I said. "All of this is saving lives," Merle countered. "What happens when you get caught? We go to prison. They die. Simple as that." Nothing about it was simple. They were stealing, but they were stealing to save lives. They were criminals, but they were also heroes to these people. The law said they were wrong, but the law also said these people didn't deserve care if they couldn't pay for it. "Opal said you need drivers," I said. "We need people we can trust, people who understand what we're really doing here. And you trust me? You could have burned us down. You didn't. That's a start." We walked back outside. The Florida sun was brutal, making everything shimmer with heat. The swamp pressed in on all sides, beautiful and dangerous, hiding secrets in every shadow. "I can't steal," I said. "I won't do that. We're not asking you to. We need someone to move supplies between our sites. Medications from sympathetic pharmacies, equipment from donors, patients who need transport. All technically legal, just under the radar. And if I get caught, you're a trucker giving people rides and moving medical donations. Nothing illegal about that." Except we both knew it wasn't that simple. Nothing about this was simple. I left Opal's property that day without giving them an answer. Told Merle I needed more time to think, and he said they'd wait. But we both knew I was already in too deep. I'd seen too much, knew too much. Whether I helped them or not, I was now part of their secret. The 2 weeks of paid leave passed slowly. I stayed in Jacksonville, trying to return to normal life, but normal didn't exist anymore. Every time I saw a news story about healthcare costs, about people dying because they couldn't afford insulin or cancer treatment, I thought about that clinic in the swamp. Then something happened that made my decision for me. I was at a truck stop off I-95, grabbing coffee and checking my phone for new load assignments, when I overheard 2 drivers talking. "You hear about that bus down near Immokalee?" one said. "Feds raided some medical warehouse, found millions in stolen equipment." My blood went cold. I moved closer, pretending to look at the snack selection. "Yeah, heard about that," the other driver said. "But here's the weird part. They also found a bunch of sick people. Migrants mostly. Feds had to call in ambulances to take them to real hospitals. What happens to them now? Who knows? Probably get deported if they're illegal. Damn shame." Some of them looked pretty bad. I left without my coffee. In my truck, I called the number Opal had given me. Merle answered on the first ring. "It's Clyde. I heard about Immokalee." "Wasn't us," he said quickly. "But we knew them. Good people doing the same work." "What happened to the patients?" "Scattered. Some to hospitals where they'll get stabilized, then kicked out. Some into hiding. Some probably didn't make it." His voice was bitter. 15 people were getting regular dialysis there. Now they've got nowhere. "Can you help them?" "We're trying, but we're already over capacity. And now the heat's on. Feds are looking for similar operations." There was a pause, then he said, "We're moving some of our critical patients tomorrow night. Need to spread them out to safer locations. Could really use someone who knows how to drive without attracting attention." "Where and when?" He gave me the details. Against every instinct I'd developed in 18 years of legitimate trucking, I agreed to help. The next night, I showed up at a warehouse in Fort Myers with my personal pickup truck. Not the best for moving people, but less conspicuous than anything commercial. Merle was there with Opal and 2 other people I didn't recognize. "Change of plans," Merle said. "Feds are watching the highways. We need to take back roads, stay off the grid." "How many people are we moving?" 12, 3 vehicles, 4 each. You'll take the dialysis patients. They're the most critical." He introduced me to my passengers. 2 elderly women, both Cuban immigrants who spoke little English. A middle-aged black man named Jerome, who looked like death warmed over. And a teenage girl, maybe 16, who Merle said was the daughter of migrant workers. "Her name's Anna," he said quietly. "She's been on dialysis for 2 years. Parents work the fields, no insurance. Without treatment, she's got maybe 2 weeks. Anna was small for her age, with the hollow look that comes from chronic illness. But her eyes were bright, aware. She smiled when I helped her into the truck. "Thank you," she said in accented English, "for helping." "Just doing what's right," I said, though I wasn't sure if that was true. We drove in convoy, taking state roads and county highways I'd never seen before. Merle led in his truck, me in the middle, Opal bringing up the rear. We had GPS coordinates for safe houses along the route, places to stop if needed. The first hour was smooth. My passengers were quiet, the two elderly women holding hands, Jerome sleeping, Anna staring out at the darkness. Then Merle's brake lights flashed 3 times, the signal for trouble. A police checkpoint ahead. Not federal, just local cops, but still dangerous. We couldn't turn around without looking suspicious. Merle pulled over about 100 yards before the checkpoint and we followed suit. He jogged back to my truck. They're checking licenses and registration. Routine stuff, unless they decide to look closer. What do we do? Play it cool. You're giving friends a ride to Orlando. They're tired, not feeling well. Keep it simple. And if they want to search, then we're screwed. He went back to his truck and we rolled forward slowly. My hands were sweating on the wheel. The checkpoint was 2 cops, both young, looking bored. They were waving most cars through after a quick look at licenses. Merle went first. They checked his papers, shined a light in his truck bed, waved him through. My turn. The cop who approached looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He took my license, glanced at it, handed it back. Where you headed? Orlando. Taking some friends to a family thing. He shined his flashlight through the back window. The light hit Anna's face, and she smiled weakly. The cop paused. She okay? Long drive, I said. She gets carsick. He looked at her for another moment. Anna, smart girl that she was, closed her eyes and leaned against the window like she was trying not to throw up. The cop stepped back. Drive safe. We were through. I watched in my mirror as Opal approached the checkpoint. The same cop checked her papers, but something was different. He was on his radio, looking at her license, then at her truck. Another cop joined him. Shit, Jerome said from the back seat. He was awake, watching. They made her. I wanted to stop, to help somehow, but Merle's truck kept going and I had to follow. In the mirror, I saw them asking Opal to step out of her vehicle. She did, calm as could be. They were searching her truck now. My phone buzzed. Text from Merle. Keep going, meeting point Charlie. I knew where that was. A closed rest stop about 20 miles ahead. We drove in silence, everyone aware that something had gone wrong. Anna was crying quietly. Jerome kept checking his phone for news. At the rest stop, Merle was already on his phone, making calls. His passengers, 4 people I hadn't met, huddled near his truck, looking scared. They arrested her, he said when I walked over. Deputy Cole just texted. They found medical supplies in her truck, nothing illegal technically, but enough to raise questions. What do we do? We keep going, get these people to safety. Opal knew the risks. We can't just leave her. We can't help her by getting caught too. He looked at the scared people relying on us. She'd want us to finish this. We redistributed the passengers. Some of Opal's riders came with me, others with Merle. 8 people in my truck now, crammed in like sardines. It was dangerous, illegal, but leaving them behind was a death sentence. The rest of the drive was a nightmare. Every set of headlights could be cops. Every shadow could hide a roadblock. Anna's breathing was getting worse, and Jerome kept checking her pulse. She needs treatment soon, he said. He'd been a paramedic before his kidneys failed. Like tonight soon. We made it to Orlando just after 3 a.m. The safe house was a rundown apartment complex where nobody asked questions. Maria was waiting with basic medical equipment. She took one look at Anna and started working immediately. She's in crisis, Maria said. I can stabilize her, but she needs real dialysis within 24 hours. Where? Merle asked. I don't know. With Opal arrested, cops will be watching our usual places. That's when I made a decision that would change everything. I know a place, I said. Private clinic in Gainesville. Owner's a friend from my Navy days. He might help. Might? He's helped before. Under the table stuff for veterans who lost benefits. He's got the equipment. Merle looked at me with something like respect. Call him. It took some convincing, but Danny agreed to open his clinic after hours. Said he could do it once, maybe twice, but not regularly. It would have to do. I drove Anna myself, just the two of us to avoid suspicion. She was barely conscious by the time we arrived. Danny was waiting at the back door, wheelchair ready. "This is the girl?" he asked. "Yeah, she's dying, Danny. Not on my watch." He worked through the night, hooking Anna up to the dialysis machine, monitoring her vitals, adjusting medications. I sat in the waiting room, thinking about how I'd gotten here. From legitimate trucker to criminal accomplice in a few weeks. Around dawn, Danny came out looking exhausted. "She's stable, needs regular treatment, proper medical care, but she'll make it through this crisis. Thank you. Don't thank me. And don't ask again. This was a one-time thing, Clyde. I've got my own problems with the medical board." I understood. Everyone in this underground network was risking everything. Licenses, freedom, lives, all to help people the system had abandoned. I drove Anna back to the safe house. Maria had good news. She'd found another clinic willing to take some patients. Bad news was it was in Texas, and transport would be difficult with increased surveillance. "I'll do it," I said. "Give me a few days to set up a legitimate run to Houston. I can take 4, maybe 5 people." "You sure?" Merle asked. "After this, you're really one of us. No going back." I crossed that line when I kept quiet about the theft. Might as well do some good if I'm already damned. Over the next few days, I arranged everything. Got a legitimate load heading to Houston, rented a larger sleeper cab, modified it with hidden compartments for medical equipment. It wasn't professional, but it would work. The day before the run, I got news about Opal. She'd been released on bail, charges reduced to possession of stolen property. Her lawyer, paid for by those mysterious donors, was confident he could get her off with probation. But the authorities were watching her now. The house, the clinic, all of it was compromised. "We're shutting it down," Merle told me. "Moving everything. Destroying what we can't move. Starting over somewhere else. Where? Better you don't know. Plausible deniability." The run to Texas went smoothly, too smoothly. I kept waiting for something to go wrong, but it was just miles of highway and scared people trying to stay quiet in hidden compartments. We made it to Houston, delivered both the legitimate cargo and the human one. The clinic in Texas was better equipped than Opal's had been. Real doctors who'd lost their licenses for various reasons, mostly speaking out against insurance companies or pharmaceutical price gouging. They took the patients without question, promised to continue treatment. Anna hugged me before I left. "You saved my life," she said. "Lots of people saved your life. I just drove. Still, thank you." On the drive back to Florida, I got a call from my dispatcher. Someone from corporate wanted to meet with me. My blood went cold. Had they found out? Was I about to be arrested? The meeting was at a hotel in Jacksonville. I walked in expecting cops, but found a woman in an expensive suit sitting alone at the conference table. "Mr. Clyde," she said, "I represent certain interests who've been following your recent activities. I don't know what you're talking about." She smiled. "Of course not. But hypothetically, if someone were moving medical supplies and patients through unofficial channels, certain pharmaceutical companies might be interested in helping." "Why would they do that?" "Tax write-offs. Good publicity if done right. And frankly, some of us still remember why we got into medicine in the first place. She slid a business card across the table. If you know anyone involved in such activities, have them call this number. We can provide supplies, funding, legal protection to a degree. This is a trap. This is business. We make billions. We can afford to lose a few million in inventory if it helps people and makes us look good. Everyone wins. She left without another word. I sat there holding the card, wondering if this was salvation or damnation. Either way, I was too deep to stop now. That night, I called Merle and told him about the meeting. He was suspicious but interested. They needed allies, especially ones with resources. Set up a meeting, he said. Neutral ground. We'll hear them out. A week later, we met at a diner off I-10. Me, Merle, the woman in the suit who introduced herself as Sandra, and surprisingly Opal. She looked older, worn down by her arrest, but still determined. Here's the deal, Sandra said. We provide expired but still effective medications, equipment that's been replaced but still works, and occasionally financial support. You distribute it, keep people alive, everybody looks the other way. What's the catch? Opal asked. No publicity, no exposés, no pointing fingers at the system. You work quietly, we help quietly. And if we get caught, you're on your own, we never heard of you. It wasn't perfect. It was actually pretty terrible. But it was better than nothing, and nothing was what these people had without us. We agreed. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've made dozens of runs, delivered medicine, moved patients, transported equipment. I'm not proud of breaking the law, but I'm not ashamed of saving lives either. The network is bigger now. More drivers, more safe houses, more sympathetic medical professionals. Sandra's company keeps us supplied, though never directly. Everything goes through intermediaries, cutouts, deniable channels. Merle runs security, vetting everyone who wants to join. He's paranoid, but that paranoia keeps us safe. He caught 2 federal informants trying to infiltrate last month. They were politely redirected to legitimate charities. Opal got her probation, but she's still involved. Runs a legitimate charity now that serves as a front for the real work. She's the heart of the operation, the one who reminds us why we're doing this when things get hard. And things do get hard. We've lost people. Patients who couldn't get treatment in time. Volunteers who got arrested. A doctor who was murdered, though officially it was a robbery gone wrong. Deputy Cole is still with us, though he's more careful now. His daughter's stable, getting regular treatment at one of our clinics. He provides intelligence, warns us about raids and investigations. The guilt eats at him, but his daughter's life matters more than his conscience. Everything fell apart on a humid Tuesday in October. I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there. Increased police presence on our usual routes, informants going dark. That feeling in your gut when something's about to go sideways. I was making what should have been a routine run from Jacksonville to Miami. Officially hauling auto parts. Unofficially transporting insulin and heart medications that Sandra's company had written off as damaged in shipping. The kind of damage where the box is dented, but the medicine's perfect. My passengers this time were a family of 3, father, mother, and their 10-year-old son who was diabetic. They'd been buying insulin from Canada, driving up once a month until the father lost his job and they couldn't afford the gas anymore. Without our network, the kid would be dead in weeks. We were just south of Fort Pierce when I noticed the tail. Black SUV, hanging back but matching my speed perfectly. Then another one appeared. Different lane, same pace. Federal agents, had to be. I called Merle on the burner phone. I've got company. How many? 2 that I can see, maybe more. Where are you? I gave him the mile marker. There was a long pause. Take exit 131. There's a warehouse district. We have a contingency there. But when I tried to take the exit, the SUVs moved in, boxing me out. They wanted me on the highway, away from anywhere I could ditch cargo or passengers. This was a coordinated operation. Can't exit, I told Merle. They're hurting me. Then it's blown. Protocol 7. Protocol 7 meant destroy everything. Every phone, every document, every connection to the network. Save yourself and pray everyone else does the same. I hung up and pulled the battery from the phone, tossing both pieces out the window at different mile markers. The family in my sleeper cab was panicking. I could hear them whispering in Spanish, the kid crying. Stay calm, I called back. When we stop, say nothing. You're hitchhikers. I picked you up at the last rest stop. You don't know me, I don't know you. 10 miles later, they made their move. Sirens, lights, the whole show. I pulled over, knowing it was over, but hoping maybe, just maybe, our lawyers could work something out. The agents were professional, efficient. They had me out and cuffed before I could say a word. Another team was already searching the cab, finding the hidden compartments with the ease of people who knew exactly where to look. We'd been betrayed. Someone on the inside had given us up. They separated us immediately. The family went in one vehicle, I went in another. As they drove me away, I saw more units arriving. Crime scene tape going up. They were going to tear my truck apart, catalog every pill, build their case meticulously. The federal detention center in Miami was cold, sterile, nothing like the county jails I'd seen in movies. They processed me like I was cargo, fingerprints, photos, medical check, cell assignment. No phone call, not yet. That would come later, after they'd had time to work on me. The interrogation started the next morning. 2 agents, one male, one female, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Mr. Clyde, the woman said, opening a file thick with papers. You're looking at federal trafficking charges, interstate commerce violations, conspiracy, 20 years minimum if convicted. I want a lawyer. Of course. But here's the thing, we don't want you. You're a small fish. We want the network. Give us names, locations, supply chains, and we can make a deal. Lawyer. They tried for another hour, showing me photos from my truck, from other busts they'd made. Pictures of Opal's house, of Merle, of Maria. They had so much, but they wanted more. They wanted everything. Finally, they gave up and let me call a lawyer. The number I'd memorized connected me to someone Sandra had arranged, a former federal prosecutor who knew the system inside and out. Don't say anything, he told me. I'll be there in 2 hours. His name was Richardson, and he looked like he'd stepped out of a legal drama. Silver hair, expensive suit, briefcase that probably cost more than I made in a month. They've got you cold on the possession charges, he said after reviewing the evidence. But the trafficking charges are harder to prove. We might be able to plead down to simple possession, get you 5 years, out in 3 with good behavior. What about the others? What others? You don't know any others. You're a trucker who made bad decisions. That's your story. But the feds weren't interested in that story. They wanted the whole network, and they were willing to squeeze everyone to get it. Over the next week, I learned about the scope of their operation. They'd been watching us for months, maybe longer. They had surveillance footage, wiretaps, financial records. They'd arrested 17 people in coordinated raids across 3 states. Opal was in custody. Merle was on the run. Maria had been detained by ICE. The safe houses were raided, the clinics shut down. Patients were scattered, some to legitimate hospitals, others just vanishing into the system's cracks. Deputy Cole made the news when he ate his gun rather than face arrest. Left a note saying he was sorry, that he just wanted to save his daughter. She died 2 weeks later when her parents couldn't afford the treatment. The prosecutors offered me deal after deal. 10 years if I testified against Opal. 5 if I gave them Merle's location. 2 if I could deliver the pharmaceutical connection. Richardson advised me to take a deal. Any deal. They've got enough to put you away for 20. Don't be a hero. But I kept thinking about Anna, about Roberto, about all the people who were alive because of what we'd done. How could I betray that? How could I help destroy the only thing keeping them alive? Then Sandra visited, not directly. That would be too risky. But Richardson delivered her message. Take the deal, he said. Give them something, anything. The network is already rebuilding. New people, new routes, new methods. Your sacrifice won't save the old system because it's already gone. So I should just roll over? You should survive. 3 years in federal prison or 20, which helps more people in the long run. He was right. I knew he was right. But it still felt like betrayal. I gave them Opal's house. Told them about the clinic there, the medical equipment, the distribution system. But I claimed I never knew who ran it. Never met anyone except the old woman who'd helped me after my crash. Partial truth, partial lie. Hopefully enough to satisfy them. They wanted more. Where did the supplies come from? Who were the doctors? Where were the other clinics? I don't know, I said to every question. I just drove. They told me where to go, what to carry. I never asked questions. It wasn't enough for the prosecutors, but it was something. They offered 8 years, final offer. Richardson said to take it. The day before I was supposed to sign the plea deal, I got a message. Not directly. Nothing in federal detention is direct. But another inmate, guy named Torres, sat next to me at lunch. Merle says to hold out, he whispered. 24 hours. Then he was gone, back to his table, and I was left wondering what could change in 24 hours. What changed was everything. That night, news broke that several pharmaceutical companies were under federal investigation for price fixing and illegal distribution practices. Whistleblowers had come forward with documents showing they'd been deliberately destroying medication to keep prices high while selling expired drugs to foreign markets. Sandra's company was at the center of it. By morning, the entire narrative had shifted. We weren't criminals stealing medicine. We were witnesses to corporate crimes. The medications we'd been distributing were ones that should have been available at affordable prices but weren't because of illegal business practices. Richardson arrived looking like he'd won the lottery. The government's dropping most of the charges, he said. They need you as witnesses in the corporate case. Time served plus probation. You'll be out by the end of the week. What about the others? Similar deals. Opal's already out. Maria's ice hold was lifted. Turns out she actually does have valid credentials, just from a school the AMA doesn't recognize. And Merle was never actually arrested. He got away. Richardson smiled. He was never running. He's been working with a different federal agency this whole time. DEA. Apparently, some of those pharmaceutical executives were also moving opioids off the books. Merle was gathering evidence. I sat there, stunned. Merle was federal? Had this whole thing been a setup? A sting operation? But Richardson had more. He wants to see you when you get out. 3 days later, I walked out of federal detention into humid Florida sunshine. Opal was waiting in her old Ford pickup, looking tired but smiling. "Come on," she said. "Let's go home." But home wasn't the house in the swamp. That had been seized was now a crime scene. Home was a new place, a legitimate medical clinic in Immokalee funded by a class action settlement against Sandra's company. Merle was there, looking exactly the same except for the DEA badge on his belt. "You're a Fed," I said. "Sometimes. It's complicated." He walked me through the clinic, which was beautiful. Real equipment, licensed doctors, everything above board. This is what we were always working toward, making it legitimate. So it was all a scam? No, it was all real. The patients, the need, the network. I just happened to be working two angles, helping people while building a case against the real criminals. And Sandra? Under indictment. 20 counts of federal violations. She'll probably get more time than any of us would have. But she was helping us. She was using us. Tax write-offs, remember? They were claiming those medications as destroyed while we distributed them. Insurance fraud on top of everything else. It made sense in a twisted way. Everyone had been using everyone else. The pharmaceutical companies used us to move product they couldn't legally sell. We used them to get medicine for people who needed it. The feds used all of us to build their case. What happens now? I asked. Now we do it right, Opal said, joining us. The clinic's legal, funded by settlements and grants. We can help people without breaking the law. And you want me involved? We need drivers, Merle said. Legal ones. Patient transport, supply runs, all above board. After everything that happened. Because of everything that happened. You kept your mouth shut when it mattered. You protected people. That's rare. I looked around the clinic. It was full of patients, some I recognized from the illegal operation. Anna was there, getting her regular dialysis, looking healthier than I'd ever seen her. Her parents were with her, both crying with relief. What about the people we couldn't save? Deputy Cole's daughter? We can't save everyone, Opal said quietly. But we save who we can. That has to be enough. I took the job. Legitimate medical transport, fully licensed and insured. The pay wasn't as good as long-haul trucking, but it was enough. More importantly, it was legal. No more looking over my shoulder. No more hidden compartments. No more choosing between the law and doing what's right. But sometimes, late at night when I'm driving medical supplies to the clinic, I think about the network. Not our small operation, but the bigger system. The one where medicine is a business, where profit matters more than people, where being poor is effectively a death sentence. That system is still there, still grinding people up, still forcing desperate choices on good people. The clinic helps, but it's a band-aid on a bullet wound. For every person we save, 10 more slip through the cracks. Merle says change takes time, that the federal cases will lead to reform. Opal says we do what we can with what we have. Maria, who now works at the clinic with her credentials finally recognized, says at least we're not hiding anymore. They're all right in their own way. But I know the truth. Somewhere out there another network is forming. Other trucks are carrying hidden cargo. Other people are making the same desperate choices we did. Because the system hasn't changed. Not really. We just got lucky. Caught up in a bigger game that worked out in our favor. The next group might not be so fortunate. I've been doing legitimate medical transport for 6 months now. It's good work, honest work. But every time I pass a broken-down truck on the highway, every time someone approaches me at a truck stop with that desperate look in their eyes, I wonder if they're part of something bigger. Something necessary but illegal. Something that saves lives while breaking laws. And every time I keep driving, because I've learned something important. Sometimes the legal thing and the right thing aren't the same. Sometimes good people have to do bad things to help others. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get a chance to do both. But luck runs out. It always does. And when it does, people die. Last week, I heard about a new network operating out of Georgia. Same model. Stolen medical supplies, underground clinics, desperate people helping desperate people. The FBI's already investigating. People will go to prison. patience will lose care. The cycle continues, and I keep driving, legal and safe, wondering if I'm still one of the good guys or if I've just gotten better at looking away. The truth is, there are no good guys in this story. Just people trying to survive in a system that values profit over life. We did what we had to do, and we were lucky enough to walk away. But somewhere tonight, in a swamp, or a warehouse, or a hidden clinic, someone else is making the same choice we did. God help them, because the system won't. The name's Rufus, and I've been driving trucks since before GPS was a thing. 32 years on the road, most of them hauling through Florida's backroads where the swamps eat the highways and the humidity rusts everything that sits still too long. I thought I'd seen everything these roads had to offer. I was wrong. It was early November last year, one of those nights where the fog rolls in off the Everglades so thick you can barely see your own hood ornament. I was deadheading back from a run to Key West, my trailer empty, just trying to make it back to Ocala before sunrise. The smart money would have been to wait out the fog, but smart money doesn't pay the bills. I was on State Road 41, that long stretch that cuts through the big Cypress Preserve. Maybe doing 35 in a 65 zone, hazards on, riding the white line because it was the only thing I could see clearly. The radio was nothing but static, and my phone had given up on finding a signal miles back. That's when I saw it, just a shape at first, a darker shadow in all that gray. As I got closer, my headlights caught the reflective tape on the back of a trailer. A truck, pulled off on the shoulder, but something about it was wrong. It was too far off the road, tilted at an angle like the driver had just given up and let it roll to a stop. I slowed down even more, debating whether to stop. Truckers look out for each other. That's the code. But something about this scene made my skin crawl. The truck's lights were off, no hazards, no reflectors put out. It was like it was trying not to be found. As I passed, I got a better look. It was a Peterbilt, maybe 5 years old, white with blue stripes. The kind of rig owner operators dream about. But the driver's door was hanging open, and I could see the interior light was on, draining the battery who knows how long. I pulled over about 50 yards ahead and sat there for a minute, engine running, watching in my mirrors. Nothing moved. The fog swirled around the abandoned truck like it was trying to swallow it whole. Finally, I grabbed my flashlight and my phone, even though it was useless out here, and walked back. The fog was so thick I lost sight of my own truck after 20 steps. The only sound was my boots on the asphalt and the distant chirp of night insects. The abandoned truck was in worse shape up close. The trailer doors were open, hanging like broken wings. There were scratches along the side, deep gouges in the metal like something had clawed at it. The driver's seat was torn, stuffing spilling out like yellow foam guts. I called out, "Hello? Anyone here? You okay?" Nothing. Not even an echo in all that fog. I climbed up to check the cab. The keys were still in the ignition, turned to the accessory position. The logbook was open on the passenger seat. The last entry dated 3 days ago. The driver's name was barely legible in the chicken scratch handwriting. Looked like Morrison or Morris. But what caught my attention was the blood. Not a lot, just drops on the steering wheel, a smear on the door handle. Fresh enough that it was still tacky when I accidentally touched it. I backed out of the cab fast, my heart hammering. This wasn't a breakdown or an abandoned truck. This was a crime scene. I went back to check the trailer, though every instinct told me to get the hell out of there. The inside was chaos. Boxes torn open, contents scattered. But this wasn't random vandalism. Someone had been searching for something specific. They'd cut open sealed packages, dumped out containers, even pulled up sections of the trailer floor. In the beam of my flashlight, I saw what they'd been looking for, or at least what they'd missed. A small package, maybe the size of a shoebox, wedged behind a refrigeration unit. It was wrapped in black plastic and duct tape, the kind of packaging that screams illegal. I should have left it. Should have walked away, called the cops from the next town, let them deal with it. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, and I'd already come this far. I pulled the package free and carefully peeled back one corner of the plastic. Inside was another layer of packaging, vacuum-sealed bags containing what looked like documents and photographs. Even through the plastic, I could see some of the photos. They showed people, lots of people, in what looked like warehouse settings. But something about their positions, their expressions, was wrong. They weren't standing. They were stacked. My stomach turned. I knew what I was looking at, bodies, dozens of bodies, wrapped in plastic, stacked like cargo. I dropped the package and stumbled backward, nearly falling out of the trailer. This wasn't drug smuggling or theft. This was evidence of something much worse, the kind of thing you read about in newspapers but never expect to stumble across on a dark highway. That's when I heard the engine. A vehicle was approaching, slow and deliberate. No headlights. I killed my flashlight and pressed myself against the inside of the trailer, hardly breathing. The engine sound got closer, then stopped. A door opened and closed. Footsteps on asphalt, multiple sets, moving toward the abandoned truck. "Check it again," a man's voice said. "Has to be here somewhere." "We've been through it 3 times," another voice replied. "If Morrison hit it, he hit it good." Morrison. So that was the driver's name. And these were the people who'd made him disappear. "Boss says we don't leave without it," the first voice said. "Those photos surface. We're all done." They were getting closer. I could hear them at the cab now, searching again. In a few minutes, they'd check the trailer and find me. I looked around for another exit, but there was only the open rear doors. No way out without being seen. Then I remembered the package. They were looking for it, needed it badly enough to keep coming back, which meant it was leverage, or evidence, or both. Quietly as I could, I picked it up and stuffed it inside my jacket. If they were going to find me anyway, at least I'd have something to bargain with. The footsteps were at the trailer now. A flashlight beam swept across the interior, missing me by inches. I held my breath, pressing further back into the shadows. "Wait," one of them said. "Someone's been here." "What do you mean?" "Look at the dust. Fresh footprints. Recent." They both climbed into the trailer, flashlights sweeping systematically. It was only a matter of seconds before they'd find me. I made a decision that probably saved my life. "I'm armed," I called out, though I wasn't. "State your business." The flashlight swung toward me, blinding. I kept my hand inside my jacket like I was holding a weapon. "Well, well," the first voice said. "What have we here?" "Just a trucker checking on an abandoned rig," I said, trying to sound calmer than I felt. "Thought someone might need help. And did they?" "Truck's empty. Whoever was here is long gone." The 2 men moved closer, and I could see them better. One was tall and thin, wearing a deputy's uniform. The other was shorter, stockier, in civilian clothes but carrying himself like law enforcement. "I'm Deputy Horace," the one in uniform said. "This is a crime scene. You need to leave." "Happy to," I said. "Just doing my civic duty, checking on a fellow driver." "Find anything interesting?" the civilian asked, his eyes locked on mine. "Empty truck, open trailer, nothing else." They exchanged a look. Deputy Horace stepped closer, his hand moving to his service weapon. "You sure about that? Because you seem nervous for someone who found nothing." "Abandoned truck in the middle of nowhere, blood in the cab? Yeah, I'm nervous. Wouldn't you be?" "Blood?" The civilian seemed genuinely surprised. "You went in the cab?" "Checking for the driver. Thought he might be hurt." Another exchange of looks. They hadn't known about the blood, which meant they hadn't been the ones who hurt Morrison. So, who had? "We're going to need you to come with us," Deputy Horace said, "for questioning." "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet. But you're a witness to a crime scene. We need a statement." I knew if I went with them, I'd end up like Morrison. Disappeared. But I also knew I couldn't outrun them, not out here. I needed to buy time, create an opportunity. "Let me get my registration for my truck," I said. "You'll want that for your report." They followed me to my rig, keeping their distance but watching every move. I climbed into my cab, making a show of looking for paperwork while actually hitting the emergency beacon on my dash. It would send out a distress signal with my GPS location, though who knew if anyone would receive it in this dead zone. "Hurry up," Deputy Horace called. I climbed back down, handed him my registration and license. While he looked them over, I memorized the civilian's face. Middle-aged, acne scars, missing part of his left ear. If I survived this, I'd need to describe him to someone. "Rufus Ward," Horace read. "Ocala address, long way from home. Just trying to get back there. Not tonight." He pocketed my documents. "You're coming with us. I need to move my truck, can't leave it blocking the road." "It's fine where it is. At least let me lock it up, turn off the engine. Diesel's expensive." Horace considered, then nodded. I climbed back in, locked the doors, but left the engine running. The emergency beacon was still transmitting. It was the best I could do. They put me in the back of an unmarked Crown Victoria, the civilian driving, Horace in the passenger seat. We didn't head toward town or any police station. Instead, we went deeper into the preserve, turning onto a dirt road I'd never seen before. "This doesn't look like the way to the sheriff's office," I said. "Shut up," the civilian said. We drove for 20 minutes, the road getting worse with every mile. Finally, we stopped at a cluster of old buildings, maybe an abandoned fish camp or hunting lodge. The kind of place where bad things happen and nobody ever finds out. They got me out of the car, Horace keeping his hand on his gun. The civilian went into one of the buildings, came back with 2 other men. One was older, gray-haired, wearing an expensive suit that looked out of place in the swamp. The other was young, muscular, the kind of guy you hire when you need violence done. "This him?" the suit asked. "Found him at Morrison's truck," Horace said. "Claims he didn't find anything." The suit studied me with cold blue eyes. "Mr. Ward, you've stumbled into something unfortunate. Morrison stole something from us. We need it back." "I don't know any Morrison." "The truck driver. The one whose rig you were searching." I told them. I was just checking if anyone needed help. The suit nodded to the muscle, who stepped forward and hit me in the stomach. I doubled over, gasping. "Let's try again," the suit said. "Morrison took photographs that belonged to us. Did you find them?" "No," I wheezed. Another nod, another punch. This one dropped me to my knees. "Mr. Ward, you seem like a practical man. Let me be practical with you. Those photos document certain activities that, while necessary, would be misunderstood by the public. We need them back." "What kind of activities?" "The kind that clean up problems, remove undesirable elements, make things tidier." The photos in my jacket felt like they were burning through the fabric, bodies stacked like cordwood. These people were killers, mass murderers maybe. "I didn't find any photos," I said. The suit sighed. "Search him." The muscle grabbed me, started patting me down. His hands found the package almost immediately. He pulled it out, handed it to the suit, who smiled like he'd won the lottery. "You know, Mr. Ward, lying to us was very stupid. I didn't know what it was, just grabbed it in case it was important. Oh, it's important. Important enough that poor Morrison died trying to protect it. He thought he could blackmail us, expose our operation. But you can't expose what doesn't exist. He opened the package, checking the contents. His smile faded. Where the rest? The rest? This is only half. Morrison had more. Where are they? I don't know. That's all I found. The suit looked at Horace. Check his truck. Thoroughly. Horace left, and we waited in tense silence. The muscle kept his gun trained on me while the suit went through the photos one by one. Even from where I knelt, I could see enough. Bodies, dozens of them. Different locations, different times, but always the same result. People turned into cargo, disposed of efficiently. You know what this is? The suit asked, holding up a photo. Progress. Cleaning up the state, removing the cancer, homeless, addicts, illegals. People who contribute nothing take everything. Those are human beings. Were human beings. Now they're statistics that will never be recorded. Problems that solved themselves. Horace came back, shaking his head. Truck's clean, but his emergency beacon is active. We might have company soon. The suit's expression darkened. How long? Could be hours in this dead zone. Could be minutes if someone was close. Then we need to clean this up quickly. He turned to the muscle. Put him with Morrison. Make it look like a drug deal gone bad. Where is Morrison? I asked, though I didn't really want to know. Feeding the gators, what's left of him. You'll be joining him soon. The muscle grabbed my arm, started dragging me toward one of the buildings. This was it. I was going to die in a swamp, become another missing trucker statistic. Then we heard the sirens. The sirens were getting closer, but the suit didn't panic. He pulled out his phone, made a quick call. We have a situation at the camp. Need immediate containment. He listened for a moment. Yes, dispatch them all. Full clean protocol. He hung up and looked at Horace. They're sending our units. We have maybe 10 minutes before the real cops get here. Our units? I asked. You didn't think Deputy Horace was our only friend in law enforcement, did you? The suit said. We have a network, Mr. Ward. People who understand that sometimes the law needs help staying clean. The muscle still had me by the arm, his grip tight enough to bruise. The sirens were maybe 5 minutes out now, multiple vehicles from the sound of it. Put him in the shed, the suit ordered. We'll deal with him after we handle the interruption. The shed was a metal building behind the main structures, probably used for storing hunting equipment back when this was a legitimate camp. Now it smelled like decay and chemicals. They shoved me inside, and I heard the click of a padlock. It was pitch black inside. I felt around carefully, finding tools, boxes, and something soft that I really hoped wasn't what I thought it was. My hands found a gap in the metal wall, rust eating through the corrugated steel. I could see slivers of the outside through it. 3 police cruisers pulled up, lights still flashing. But something was off. They parked in formation, blocked the exit road. This wasn't a response to my emergency beacon. This was crowd control. Officers got out, but they weren't hurrying, weren't treating this like an emergency. They were casual, chatting with the suit and Horace like old friends. I recognized one of them from truck stops over the years, a sergeant who always seemed to be working the night shift on this stretch of highway. We've got a problem, the suit was saying. Trucker found Morrison's rig, found the package. Where's the trucker now? The sergeant asked. Secure, but he activated an emergency beacon. Real units might be coming. I'll handle that, the sergeant said, getting on his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 23. That emergency beacon on State Road 41 is a false alarm. Trucker hit it by accident. We've cleared the scene. The radio crackled back with confirmation. Just like that, my lifeline was cut. I kept searching the shed in the darkness, trying to find something, anything that might help. My hands brushed against a tarp, and underneath I felt something that made my blood run cold. A hand, human, cold but not stiff, recent. I jerked back, suppressing a scream. There was a body in here with me, maybe Morrison, maybe someone else. I forced myself to search the corpse's pockets, trying not to think about what I was doing. I found a wallet, a phone, and something that felt like a flash drive. The phone was dead, but the wallet had a driver's license. By holding it up to the crack in the wall, I could barely make out the name in the moonlight. Morrison. James Morrison. So they hadn't fed him to the gators after all. They'd kept him here, probably planning to dispose of him more carefully. The flash drive was small, the kind you could hide easily. Morrison must have separated the evidence, kept some photos in the truck as a decoy while the real proof was on him. These people had tortured him, killed him, and still hadn't found it. Outside, they were discussing what to do with me. I could hear fragments of conversation. Make it look like an accident. Too many questions. Just another missing trucker. Then a new voice, female, older. You boys making a mess again? Everyone went quiet. I pressed my eye to the crack, trying to see who commanded that kind of respect. A woman stood by one of the police cars, probably in her 60s, wearing regular clothes but carrying herself like royalty. Even in the bad light, I could see the others defer to her. Mabel, the suit said, and for the first time he sounded nervous. We weren't expecting you. Clearly, Mabel said. I heard you lost Morrison's package. We recovered it. The trucker had it. Half of it. Where's the rest? We're working on that. Mabel walked over to the shed, and I backed away from the wall. She stood outside for a moment, then spoke loud enough for me to hear. Mr. Ward, is it? You're in quite a predicament. I stayed silent. Morrison was one of ours, she continued. Thought he could turn whistleblower, expose our little cleaning service, but he didn't understand the scope of what we do. Neither do you. I understand you're murderers, I said through the wall. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Murder implies the victims matter. What we do is pest control. Remove the elements that drain society. The homeless who refuse help. The addicts who won't get clean. The illegals who bring crime and disease. You're insane. I'm practical. Do you know how much the state spends on homeless services? On repeatedly arresting the same addicts? On processing illegals who just come back? We offer a permanent solution. You mean genocide. Such dramatic language. We prefer social hygiene, and we're not the first. Every society throughout history has found ways to remove undesirable elements. We're just more efficient. The photos show dozens of bodies. Hundreds, actually, over the past 5 years. And not one has been missed. Not one has generated a real investigation. Because nobody cares about the people we remove. Their families care. What families? We choose carefully, Mr. Ward. People who are alone, whose disappearance improves the community. The violent homeless man who attacks tourists. Gone. The dealer selling fentanyl to kids. Disappeared. The illegal immigrant who's wanted for rape in 3 countries. Vanished. You're not judges. You don't get to decide who lives or dies. Don't we? We've been doing it for years. The mayor knows, the governor knows. They don't officially approve, but they don't stop us either. Crime rates drop, tourist areas stay clean, property values rise, everyone wins. Except the people you murder. The people we remove were already dead, living on the streets, consumed by drugs, running from the law. We just expedite the inevitable. I heard footsteps moving away, then discussion I couldn't make out. They were deciding my fate, and I already knew what the verdict would be. I wasn't homeless or an addict or illegal. I was a working man with family, with connections. My disappearance would be noticed, but they'd done this before. Truckers went missing all the time. Hijackings, accidents, voluntary disappearances. I'd just be another statistic. I felt around Morrison's body again, found his keys. One of them was small, like for a lockbox. Maybe he had more evidence stashed somewhere. But where? And how could I use it when I was locked in a shed with his corpse? The conversation outside got heated. I heard Horace arguing with Mabel about something, the suit trying to mediate. Then car doors slamming, engines starting. Through the crack, I saw two of the police cars leaving. Were they abandoning me here? Or going to get something worse? Time passed. Maybe an hour, maybe more. The fog was starting to lift, and I could see dawn approaching through the cracks in the wall. They'd have to move soon. Can't dispose of bodies in daylight, even in a place this remote. The padlock rattled, the door opened, and Horace stood there alone, his service weapon drawn. "Come on," he said, quietly. I stepped out, expecting to be shot immediately, but Horace just motioned for me to walk toward the main building. Where is everyone? Handling another problem. Someone reported finding blood at Morrison's truck. Real cops this time. They had to go manage the scene, make sure nothing leads back here. And you're supposed to kill me while they're gone? That's the plan. We entered the main building. It had been an office once, maybe where the camp registered hunters or fishermen. Now it was a command center. Maps on the walls marked with red X's, photos of people labeled processed, filing cabinets that probably contained records of murders. "Sit," Horace said, gesturing to a chair. I sat, watching him pace. He seemed conflicted, nervous. "You know this is wrong," I said. "Shut up." "How many people have you helped kill?" I said, "Shut up. They're using you. When this falls apart, and it will, you'll take the blame. The suit, Mabel, they'll walk away clean." Horace stopped pacing, looked at me. "You don't understand. They have my daughter." "What?" "Not literally. But they know about her medical condition, her need for expensive treatments. They pay for everything, keep her alive. If I don't help them, the payments stop. There are other ways to get medical help. Not for what she has. Rare genetic condition. The treatments are experimental, not covered by insurance. $100,000 a month." I thought about my own kids. Grown now, but still precious to me. What would I do to keep them alive? "Morrison had kids too," I said. "Did you know that?" Morrison was going to expose us. Would have sent dozens of people to prison, ended the medical funding for families like mine. "So, you killed him?" "I didn't pull the trigger, but I didn't stop it either. There's still time to do the right thing." "The right thing?" He laughed bitterly. "The right thing would be letting my daughter die? The right thing would be letting the homeless overrun tourist areas. The right thing would be catch and release for criminals who just victimize more people? The right thing would be due process, trials, justice. Justice." He spat the word. "You know what justice is? It's a 13-year-old girl dying because society decided her life isn't worth the cost of keeping her alive. So you help murder others to save her." "Yes, and I'd do it again." We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear birds starting their morning songs. Such a normal sound in such an abnormal place. "Morrison hid more evidence," I said finally. "More than just the photos." Horace looked up sharply. "Where?" "I'll tell you if you let me go." "I can't do that." "Then your daughter dies when this operation gets exposed. Because it will, with or without Morrison's evidence. You can't kill hundreds of people and keep it secret forever. We've done pretty well so far. But you're getting sloppy. Morrison found out. I found out. How many others know and are just too scared to speak up? Horace was sweating now, the gun shaking slightly in his hand. If you let me go, I continued, I disappear. Change my name, move to another state, never speak of this. You get Morrison's evidence, destroy it. Keep your operation running. Mabel would never agree to that. Mabel doesn't have to know. Tell them I escaped, that you had to kill me. Body fell in the swamp and gators got it. They'll believe you. You don't have Morrison's evidence, you're bluffing. I pulled out the flash drive I'd taken from Morrison's body. 60 gigabytes of photos, videos, documents, all uploaded to a cloud server that will automatically email to every news outlet in Florida if I don't check in every 24 hours. It was a lie. The drive was probably important, but I had no idea what was on it. And there was no cloud server, no automatic emails. But Horace didn't know that. He stared at the drive, calculating. How do I know you won't expose us anyway? Because I want to live, and I want my family to live. You think I don't know what these people are capable of? What they do to my kids, my ex-wife, everyone I care about? Give me the drive. After you let me go. Now, or I shoot you and take it. Shoot me, and the automatic email goes out. You need me alive and free to stop it. We stared at each other, two men, trapped by circumstances, both trying to save what mattered to them. Finally, Horace lowered his gun. There's a boat dock behind the camp. Small motorboat there, enough gas to get you to the public landing 5 miles south. From there you can hitchhike, disappear, whatever. And you? I'll report that you escaped, that I pursued but lost you in the swamp. They'll search, but if you're smart, they won't find you. What about my truck? Already being processed. Officially, you abandoned it after hitting Morrison's rig while driving drunk. You fled the scene, disappeared into the swamp. They'd thought of everything, created a narrative that would explain my disappearance without raising questions. I'd be a criminal who ran rather than face charges. The drive, Horace said, holding out his hand. I gave it to him. He pocketed it without looking at it, then gestured toward the back door with his gun. Go. You have maybe 30 minutes before they get back. I started toward the door, then stopped. Your daughter, what's her name? Why? Because I want to remember that this insanity is about saving someone, not just killing. Sarah. Her name is Sarah. I hope she gets better, Horace. I really do. But not like this. Find another way. There is no other way. I left him there, standing in that office full of murder documentation, holding a flash drive that might or might not contain evidence of crimes that would continue regardless. The boat was where he said, a small, aluminum fishing boat with an old outboard motor. It started on the third try, coughing blue smoke. I navigated through narrow channels, following the sunrise, hoping I was going the right direction. The boat ran out of gas 3 miles from where Horace said the landing would be. I had to paddle the rest of the way using a broken oar I found under the seat, my arms burning with the effort. The sun was fully up by the time I reached the public dock, which was really just a concrete ramp and a parking area with 2 pickup trucks. I ditched the boat and started walking toward the road. No phone, no wallet. Horace had kept those. Just the clothes on my back and the knowledge of something horrible happening in the Florida swamps. A man loading fishing gear into one of the trucks looked at me suspiciously. I was soaking wet, muddy, and probably looked half crazy. You okay, buddy? He asked. Boat trouble, I said. Been out all night, you heading toward town? Naples, yeah. I'd appreciate a ride. Pay you for gas when I can get to an ATM. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Hop in. His name was Carl, retired plumber who fished these waters twice a week. He didn't ask questions, just talked about base and weather while I tried to process what had happened. At a gas station in Naples, I borrowed his phone to call my ex-wife in Ocala. "Rufus, where the hell have you been? Your company's been calling. They said you abandoned your truck." "It's complicated. I need you to wire me some money. Western Union." "What's going on? Are you in trouble?" "I'll explain later. Please, just send $500. She agreed, worried but trusting. I gave Carl $50 for gas and his trouble, then caught a Greyhound to Tampa. I needed distance from that camp, from Mabel and her death squad. At a library in Tampa, I used a public computer to research. I started with Morrison's name, found an obituary dated 2 days after I'd found his body. Official cause of death, single vehicle accident. He'd left behind a wife and 2 kids in Tallahassee. Then I searched for missing persons reports along the highways I knew. The numbers were staggering. Dozens of truckers disappeared every year in Florida alone. Most were attributed to hijackings, voluntary disappearances, or accidents where bodies weren't recovered. But knowing what I knew now, I wondered how many had stumbled onto something they shouldn't have. How many had seen too much, asked the wrong questions, stopped to help when they should have kept driving. I spent 3 days in Tampa, sleeping in a cheap motel, trying to decide what to do. Going to the authorities seemed pointless. Mabel had made it clear they had people everywhere. The media might be interested, but I had no proof. The photos, the flash drive, all of it was gone. On the 4th day, I took a risk and called my dispatcher from a burner phone. "Rufus, Jesus Christ, where are you? The cops said you were drunk, crashed into another truck and ran." "That's not what happened." "Then what did happen?" "I can't explain, but I need you to know I wasn't drunk. I've never driven drunk in my life. The police report says, the police report is wrong. Listen, I'm done. I'm not coming back to trucking. Rufus, if you're in some kind of trouble, just tell everyone I'm sorry. And be careful on those back roads, especially at night." I hung up and threw the phone away. My trucking career was over. 32 years of clean driving ended with a lie about drunk driving and fleeing the scene. I settled in Pensacola, far from the Everglades and Mabel's operation. Got a job at a warehouse, kept my head down, tried to forget. But you can't forget something like that. The photos of bodies stacked like cargo, Morrison's corpse in that shed, Mabel's calm explanation of social hygiene. 3 months passed. I'd started to think maybe I really had escaped, that they'd written me off as not worth pursuing. Then I saw her at a diner near my apartment. Mabel, sitting alone in a corner booth, sipping coffee like any other retiree. I froze in the doorway. She looked up, smiled, and waved me over. Running would have been pointless. If she'd found me, they had people watching. I sat across from her, my heart pounding. "Hello, Rufus," she said pleasantly. "You look well. Pensacola seems to agree with you. What do you want?" "Just checking in, making sure you're keeping your promise to Deputy Horace." "I haven't said anything to anyone." "I know. We monitor these things. Email, phone calls, internet searches. You've been very good. Then why are you here?" She pulled out a tablet, showed me a photo. It was my daughter, my grandkids, taken recently at a park in Georgia. "Beautiful family," she said. "Your daughter's a teacher, isn't she? 3rd grade. Your grandson plays Little League. Your granddaughter takes ballet. If you touch them, we won't, as long as you continue being good. But I wanted you to understand something, Rufus. You didn't escape. We let you go. Why? Because Deputy Horace was right. Killing you would have raised questions. You're not like our usual subjects. You have connections. People who would look for you. Better to let you disappear yourself. So I'm what? On probation. Think of it as retirement. You stay quiet, stay away from Florida, and everyone stays safe. Your family thrives, you live peacefully, and our work continues. Your work? You mean murdering people. She sighed. We've processed over 300 individuals since you left. Crime rates in target areas are down 40%. Tourist revenues are up. The governor is privately thrilled. You're monsters. We're necessary. Every civilization has its shadows, Rufus. The things that must be done but can't be acknowledged. We're just more organized than most. She stood up, left a 20 on the table for her coffee. One more thing, she said. Morrison's flash drive. The one you gave Horace. It was blank. My blood went cold. Morrison was smarter than we thought. He hid the real evidence somewhere else. We still haven't found it. If you happen to remember anything, any detail about where he might have hidden it, we'd be grateful. I don't know anything. She studied me for a moment. No, I don't think you do. But if that changes, you have Deputy Horace's number. She left, and I sat there shaking. They were still watching me. Would always be watching. I was free but not free, alive but living under a constant threat. That night, I went through everything I remembered about Morrison's truck, trying to think if I'd missed something. He'd hidden the real evidence somewhere, probably expecting to retrieve it after his blackmail succeeded. But where? Then I remembered the keys I'd found on his body. One was small, like for a lockbox or storage unit. Morrison had been based out of Tallahassee. If he'd hidden evidence, it would be somewhere he could access easily. I shouldn't have cared. Should have left it alone. But knowing that evidence existed, that proof of their murders was out there waiting to be found, ate at me. 2 weeks later, I took a bus to Tallahassee. Used the last of my savings to hire a private investigator. Told him I was Morrison's cousin, looking for any storage units or safety deposit boxes he might have had. The PI found 3 storage units in Morrison's name. 2 had been cleaned out by his widow. The 3rd was past due, scheduled for auction. I paid the past due amount and gained access. Inside was mostly junk, old furniture, boxes of clothes. But in the back, hidden under a tarp, was a small fireproof safe. The key from Morrison's pocket fit perfectly. Inside were 3 flash drives, each labeled with dates. A notebook filled with names, locations, dates, and photos. Hundreds of photos documenting not just murders, but the entire operation. Pictures of Mabel meeting with politicians. Deputy Horace disposing of bodies. The suit, whose name, according to the notebook, was Daniels, paying off other cops. Morrison had been investigating them for over a year, gathering evidence, planning his exposé. He'd died trying to bring them down. I sat in that storage unit for an hour, holding evidence that could destroy their entire operation. But using it would destroy me too. They'd kill my family, make us all disappear. So I did the only thing I could. I mailed copies to 5 different law firms in 5 different states, with instructions to open them only if anything happened to me or my family. I sent anonymous tips to the FBI, the Florida Attorney General, 3 major newspapers. No names, no return addresses, just enough information to start investigations. Then I put the originals back in the safe, locked it, and left it in the storage unit. Paid for another year in advance using cash. I went back to Pensacola and waited. The news broke 6 months later. Federal agents raided multiple locations across Florida. Dozens arrested, including several sheriff's deputies, 2 judges, and a state senator. They called it the largest corruption case in Florida history. Mabel was never arrested. Officially, she didn't exist in connection to the case. Daniels disappeared completely. Deputy Horace was found dead in his car, apparent suicide, the day before he was supposed to be arrested. His daughter, Sarah, died 2 months later. Without the money from the operation, her treatment stopped. I felt responsible for that. Still do. An innocent girl died because I exposed the operation, keeping her alive. But how many other innocents had died to pay for her treatments? There were no good answers, only degrees of evil. The investigation continued for over a year. Bodies were found in dozens of locations. The official count was 243, though investigators admitted the real number was probably higher. Most were people nobody had reported missing. Homeless, addicts, undocumented immigrants. But there were others too. A social worker who'd asked too many questions. A journalist who'd gotten too close to the truth. Truckers like Morrison who'd seen too much. I testified before a grand jury via video link, my identity protected. Told them about finding Morrison's truck, being kidnapped, escaping. I didn't mention keeping Morrison's evidence or mailing the tips. Let them think their investigation had uncovered everything on its own. It's been 2 years since the trials ended. Most of the convictions stuck. The sheriff's department was gutted and rebuilt. New policies, federal oversight, the whole 9 yards. The media called it a victory for justice, but I knew better. Mabel was still out there. So were others like her. The network had been damaged, not destroyed. Cut off one head, 2 more grow back. That's how these things work. I stayed in Pensacola, still working at the warehouse. Changed my name legally to Robert Wilson. Grew a beard, gained some weight, became invisible. The kind of man nobody looks at twice. But I couldn't stop watching the news from Florida. Every missing person report, every unidentified body, I wondered if they were starting again. Building a new network, learning from their mistakes. Then, last month I got a package at work. No return address. Inside was a single photo. Me, walking into the warehouse that morning. On the back, written in neat handwriting, "We remember." They'd found me again. Or maybe they'd always known where I was. I thought about running, but where? How far would be far enough? Alaska? Canada? It didn't matter. People like Mabel had resources, connections. They could find anyone if they really wanted to. So I stayed, kept working, kept my head down. But I also started writing this all down. Every detail I remembered, names, dates, places. If something happens to me, at least there'll be a record. 3 nights ago, I saw the white van. It was parked across from my apartment building when I got home from work. Nobody inside that I could see, but the engine was running. It was still there when I went to bed. Gone by morning. Last night, it was back. Different spot, same van. This time I could see someone in the driver's seat. Just sitting, watching. I called in sick to work today. Spent the morning finishing this account, making copies. One goes to my daughter with instructions not to open it unless something happens to me. One to a lawyer. One to a journalist who covered the original case. It's afternoon now. The van is back, parked right outside. There's a knock at my door. I know who it is before I open it. Mabel stands there, looking exactly the same as she did 2 years ago. Calm, composed, like a grandmother visiting for tea. "Hello, Robert," she says, using my new name. "May I come in?" I let her in. What else can I do? She sits on my couch, looks around my small apartment. "You've built a nice, quiet life here. What do you want?" "To make you an offer. One last time. I'm listening. The operation is rebuilding. New management, new methods, but the same purpose. Cleaning up society's failures. We've learned from our mistakes. No more mass graves. Bodies are cremated now, ashes scattered at sea, no evidence. Why are you telling me this? Because we need drivers. People who know the roads, who can move special cargo without questions. People who've already proven they can keep secrets. You want me to work for you? Think of it as insurance. You're either with us or you're a liability. We don't like liabilities. And if I refuse, she doesn't answer. Doesn't need to. You know I sent evidence to multiple sources, I say. If something happens to me, nothing will happen to you if you're smart. Drive for us twice a month. Nothing illegal in your truck, just creating routes for others to follow. Same thing you did before, but now you're paid for it. Paid to help you kill people. Paid to transport legitimate cargo while others handle the cleaning. You never see anything, never touch anything illegal, just drive. It's the same deal the devil always offers. Compromise your soul a little at a time until there's nothing left. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow. The van outside will wait for your answer. She leaves, and I sit here writing this final entry. I know what I should do. Go to the FBI, tell them everything. Trust the system to protect me. But the system is what created people like Mabel in the first place. The system that says some lives matter less than others. Or I could run, disappear completely, become someone else, somewhere else. But they'd find me. They always do. Or I could give in, drive their routes, become complicit in whatever new horror they're planning. Live with the guilt, but at least live. There's one more option, the one Morrison tried. Fight back. Gather evidence, build a case, expose them again. But Morrison died for that choice. Horace, too, in his own way. I've made my decision. Tomorrow, when they come for my answer, I'll be gone. Not running, exactly. Just driving. Getting back on the road where I belong. I've got enough saved for a used truck, enough connections to get loads that keep me moving. They'll follow, probably. Watch me. Wait for me to make a mistake. But truckers are hard to pin down when they want to be. Always moving, always another load, another destination. And while I'm driving, I'll be watching too, looking for their new operations, documenting what I see, building a case that might actually stick this time. Morrison had the right idea, wrong execution. He tried to blackmail them, thought he could control them. But you can't control cancer, you can only cut it out. And sometimes it takes multiple surgeries. I'm sending this account to 5 different sources with instructions to release it if I disappear. Maybe it'll help someone understand what's happening out there on those dark roads. Maybe it'll prevent another trucker from stopping when they should keep driving. Or maybe it'll just be another story nobody believes. Another conspiracy theory in a world full of them. But I know the truth. There are people out there who think they're cleaning up society by disappearing its most vulnerable members. They have badges, money, political connections. They operate in the shadows between the streetlights, in the spaces where nobody looks too close. And they're still out there. The van's engine just started. Someone's coming up the stairs. Multiple footsteps. If you're reading this, it means they decided I was too much of a liability after all. Or maybe I managed to expose them again before they got me. Either way, remember this. Not every abandoned truck is really abandoned. Not every helpful stranger is really helpful. Not every missing person is really missing. Some are taken, processed, disappeared. And the people doing it? They look just like everyone else. They are everyone else. Your deputy, your judge, your neighbor. People who've convinced themselves that murder is mercy if you choose the right victims. The footsteps have stopped outside my door. No knock this time. I should be scared, but I'm not. I'm tired. Tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of knowing what I know. Morrison's widow never knew what her husband died trying to expose. Maybe that's a mercy, or maybe she deserved to know he died a hero, even if a flawed one. Deputy Horace's daughter, Sarah, died thinking her father was a good man who did bad things to save her. She wasn't wrong exactly, but she wasn't right either. And me, I'm just a trucker who stopped when he should have kept driving, who saw something he shouldn't have seen, who's been living on borrowed time ever since. The door is opening. They have a key somehow. I see her, Mabel. She's not smiling now. Behind her are 3 men I don't recognize. Young, efficient-looking. The new generation of cleaners. "You were going to run," she says, not a question. "I was going to drive." Same thing. No. Running means you're scared. Driving means you're free. She nods to the men. They move forward. I don't resist. What would be the point? As they take me, I think about all the miles I've driven, all the sunrises and sunsets from behind the wheel, all the small towns and big cities, the mountains and deserts and swamps. It was a good life, mostly, an honest life, until it wasn't. And maybe that's enough. Maybe... End of document. This file was recovered from Robert Wilson's, formerly Rufus Ward apartment on November 15th. Wilson has been missing for 6 days. His disappearance is being investigated as a voluntary abandonment. No signs of foul play were found at the scene. The van mentioned in his account has not been located. The woman identified as Mabel does not match any records in state or federal databases. This document is being treated as fiction, the product of a troubled mind possibly suffering from paranoid delusions brought on by stress and isolation. Case closed, pending new evidence. But between you and me, I've seen the photos from Morrison's storage unit. The ones that weren't entered into evidence. The ones that show things that officially never happened. Wilson was right about one thing. They're still out there, and they're watching.